Good evening. I'd like to call to order the MSAD 51 School Board meeting of the directors, Wednesday, June 18th. Our first item is actually to move into an executive session. Can I have a motion to enter executive session to consult with legal counsel pursuant of State Statute 1 MRSA 4056E regarding the board's legal rights and duties?
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. All in favor? Great, unanimous. So we are going to move.
Moving.
Welcome back. All right. So the next section of the agenda is recognitions. I have been honored to serve alongside Christina Mitchell for the last 3 years of my term on the board. She is our only outgoing board member this year. Unfortunately, she is up in Augusta and not able to receive her little gift. We'll have to get it to her. But it's just been a real pleasure to get to know Christina. She's done an incredible job as the chair of the curriculum committee, amongst other contributions she's made over the past 3 years. And while we miss her on the board, we know she'll be very busy up in Augusta, still representing this community. So we get to move on to the MSAD 51 Staff Member of the Year. So for over a decade, we have honored one member of the MSAD 51 staff each spring as the Employee of the Year. Last year at this time, we honored Sherry McGinnis, Sherry McGinnis, who was selected as the 2024-25 Employee of the Year. This year, we received 43 nominations for staff from across the district, with several staff members receiving more than one nomination from their colleagues. The committee then had the difficult task of narrowing down the list to 5 finalists. Our finalists included GHS science teacher Emily Banks Moulton, GMS 4-8 behavior case manager Kristen Benoit, risk assessment coordinator and mental health specialist Eric Brown, kindergarten teacher Jonna King, and finally 5th grade teacher Ariana Rothbart. Thank you. These staff members were honored earlier this spring with a red carpet, balloons, and fanfare. Congratulations again to each of our finalists. You each exemplify the many positive qualities of the MSAD 51 staff as a whole. Thank you for your efforts. We see you and celebrate you. While each of these awesome individuals is worthy of being recognized as Employee of the Year, the committee did have to narrow down the selection to just one staff member who engages, empowers, and inspires our students. Before I reveal our newest Employee of the Year, I'd like to share with you all a brief snippet from the nomination form for the individual the committee has selected for this honor. It says, "This person never complains, always shows up, always works from a solution-based approach, is always thorough, is always kind. Not to mention, this person can handle difficult conversations. This person celebrates children. This person makes a difference at the ground level. We simply could not operate to the standard we do without this person's hard work and dedication to the children and staff of the district." With that, please join me in congratulating the 2025 Employee of the Year, Eric Brown.
Yeah!
And right. Well, thank you. We so appreciate all that you've done for our students, family, and community. So thank you so much. And yes, well, it's a surprise maybe at home to who the winner is, whoever's not at home. Eric is the only one here. So, well, not the only one. There's a few other people. But thank you so much, and I appreciate you coming tonight.
Eric was celebrated in front of the entire staff a week ago. They also gave him a standing ovation as well. But just Eric, you've worked in the district for several years. You are such an important and valuable and integral part of everything we do. And I know it's awkward to be celebrated, but I will tell you that I hear that from so many people all the time. And so it's really, we're happy to celebrate you, and we want to. And the amount of work you do and what you do every day is unbelievable for our district. And we're just, you represent our staff. Thank you for all you do.
Deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
My brother is the director of emergency preparedness and disaster response in Antelope Valley, California. And when I got elected to the school board, it was like giving him authorization, my little brother, authorization to tell me everything that I should make sure that we're doing. And one of the first things he said is, if you can get a risk management person on, like, just on retainer, I was like, guess what? And mentioned you and how effective you've been. And he just was so relieved and hopes that other schools are able to have someone like you. So I think you're also a trailblazer, and what probably has been avoided, and the number of kids who are in a much better place because of your job is huge. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're very modest, Eric. Thank you for your work.
Yes.
I think that was in the comments too, very modest. Thank you. All right. Now we get to move to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 5th, 2025 meeting as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Megan. Any questions or comments? June 5th. Yes, Annika.
Just one quick thing. So under number 7, superintendent's report, it says that Superintendent Porter highlighted the following, and then there's nothing that follows that. So
I was waiting to see if you were going to notice, Annika. I didn't give her,
Annika always notices.
you're good with those minutes. I'll have to tell you.
sorry.
You're really good. But that one's kind of a big one. So thank you.
but with that, I would happily support that.
And Annika, you win the prize.
Yeah, exactly. It's the test.
Apparently I have nothing to say.
All right. All in favor? There is no public there's no one here wishing to make public comment this evening. We have no presentations, but we have a lot of items for action. So our first item for action is to approve the junior student representative to the board of directors. Can I have a motion to approve Caitlin McCarran as the junior student representative for the 25-26 school year?
So moved.
Thank you, Megan. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kim. Can you, Megan, I know you were part of this process. Do you want to just give a little highlight of the selection process?
Sure. The selection process was, I think, really interesting and thorough. Applicants submitted their applications and were selected, and then Christina and I are now senior rep. Carl, Francis, and Jeff, we did some interviews, and like, these kids are amazing. These kids are total superstars. They are poised and calm, and their applications were well written and clear. So it was not a super easy decision, but Caitlin, she really knocked it out of the park. She interviewed well, and she finished her interview by asking us a question, and I think it took us all by surprise. So I think she'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think she comes from a really different position from our last 3 reps, which I think will add just a different flavor, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah, thank you. And I know her application was shared with the board, and I know that she's had a strong position with CalCares, which has become a really important part of our school community. So that's great that she has that experience. And she served with me on the athletic advisory committee.
Oh, nice.
So she's been she's only a sophomore, and she's already had a lot of student involvement. So that's great.
She's a go-getter.
Any other questions, comments?
What was the diversity selection area? I feel like, I'm trying to say this the proper way, is just that, how many applicants do we have, and was it 50% male, female? Was it certain different people? What did it look like?
You want to take that, Megan?
I don't know, because I only did the interviewing, so I don't know how many people actually applied, or if that was the group of people that applied.
There was 5, right?
Okay, so those were the 5. Okay.
So we interviewed everyone that applied.
Well, one was out ill.
Oh, I'm sorry, one was out that day, but we did extend interviews to everyone then.
All female. But lots of diversity in sort of like the sports and their extracurriculars. Like they were all very different from one another. I think one is full IB. I'm not sure about the others. One's been really active in the what is it called, the Littles program?
Bigs and Littles.
Bigs and Littles. Yeah, so the 4 applicants that we interviewed, they were all quite diverse to each other. They all happen to be female.
In this pool, the other 4, when we are looking to fill other committees, will they be considered? Were they interested in being on specific committees?
Yep. So Carl Francis has already talked to some of these students, or he's talked to all of the students that interviewed, so all 4 of them. And the committee discussed, what would be other students that might be appropriate for a committee. And there were, definitely there was consensus that there were students that would be great to be on some of the board committees. So that will be recommended to the board chair for consideration as appointments when appointments are made to the committees. But Carl did send along a note saying that the students were interested, they were wanting to join other committees. So that would be an opportunity for us to have student voice.
Yeah, they've been such assets to our committees. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Great. All in favor? It's unanimous. Wonderful. Okay.
Can't wait to meet you, Kate.
I know, right?
And I want to know what that question is, but whatever that last question was, now I want to know what it is.
So, do you want to make the next motion? Do you have the motions open, Tim? I can read it.
I don't have the motions.
Okay, I'll read it. So the next is a motion the motion is a vote. Wait, this doesn't make a sense. Okay.
Yeah, this is weird.
Okay, so, okay, thank you. Look, we need another piece of paper. There we go. I move that the vote entitled Vote to Award Construction Contract for One Campus Project be adopted in form presented to this meeting. Can I have a motion?
You have a second.
So did I make the motion? I usually don't make motions.
So moved?
Okay.
Yes, so moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Okay, so that puts it on the table. So, as many people are aware now, the bid opening was last Thursday for the school construction project, same day as groundbreaking, just a little stressful. But luckily, I just have to give my hats off to the architects and their team, who did an extraordinary job along with our building committee of ensuring that we were well positioned with an understanding of what we were putting forward, what we could expect or anticipate for costs. And we were so grateful that 6 groups bid on the project and all came in under our expected award amount. And so we were just thrilled that not only is the base project going to be able to be funded, but we had a number of alternates that we wanted as part of the base, but wanted to make sure that we were going to get the base paid for. And just a reminder that the base is not just the new school, but it is also the new classrooms at MIW. It's also parking adjustments. It's all of the other things that are going to make this campus what we need for our future. As many of you know, we've been able to start a couple aspects of the project, the maintenance building and the turf field, and those parts of the project had already been started, so because we needed more time to get all the documents together for the building, and so we were just really grateful to see that not only is the base, which is the school and some of the other building additions and parking, but some of the things that were considered at alternates, and we can go through what that list of things is. Those were also, that came in under budget, under the overall budget that we had for this part of the project. So I know there's been some documents provided to the board. I think we want to have a bit of a longest discussion as people like to have about the different parts, the base and the ad alternates, to put a recommendation forward for an award to the low bidder, who was Great Falls Construction. And so, yeah, I'm just going to open it up. I guess, Tim, anything as building chair, and Sean and Megan also in the building committee and part of all these conversations. But Tim, do you want to?
Yeah, no, thanks. I think that, just to be clear, a lot of the ad alternates that we ended up with, you would have, and we had discussed whenever I think around that night that we had the conversation around the tariff contingencies and stuff like that. So maybe that was April. A lot of the stuff that was in the ad alternates were things that you probably would have been like, that's not base. And that we had like a backup plan of, okay, how we know we need this somehow. We're either going to have to pay for it again because there may have been materials that we couldn't afford at this time, and we were going to use it as ad alternates because of this, like how long those materials would last, or like we'll hold off on certain windows or something. We had a lot of ad alternates that we narrowed down to our top ad alternates that were probably still necessary, that you would have considered probably should have been in the base bid. And so now I think what we're getting is what we want, and what I would consider a very strong base project right now. So my point is to say that I don't think the ad alternates that I'm so excited that we have the ad alternates, because I don't think these ad alternates, I think they could be looked at as like, oh, they're like the luxuries. What we're talking about are not necessarily luxuries. They're still very core functional aspects that we just had to come up with other plans to figure out how to pay for.
And in your packet, it's the bid tabulation comparison sheet. This lists the alternates and what the estimate and the Great Falls Construction estimates were that came in for those alternates, and that will give you the description. As you'll see, a lot of them have to do with things that we wanted to do at MIW. You know, as we know, that building is going to have to be fitted for different age students. It's gotten a lot of wear and tear with the addition of hundreds of students through that main building that it wasn't originally designed for. And so there were some things that we held back as an alternate that we really saw as like a need for making that building work for that new school group, but we didn't want to have to sacrifice as part of the base project in case that ended up coming in too high. I will say one of the last ad alternate is the most expensive ad alternate. We've been in many conversations about parking on our campus. And right in the middle of our campus is that retention pond out by the GCA and the track. We had the plans included putting parking over that, and it is the most expensive alternate, and it came in even higher than our estimate. So I would like to consider potential other options for parking, and maybe making the retention pond looking a little nicer, but not spending as much to put parking over it. So that's one of my thoughts, but I'd be interested in hearing others' questions.
So the other thing before we get into a discussion on that, because I think it's important, the other thing to know with that is that unlike some other parking potential that we have here, this is one that they would want to do early in the process. And so as we review this, just know that if we went forward with it, I'm happy to tell you my opinion of whether or not we should. If we went forward with it, it's kind of like we decide soon kind of thing. And I think that our understanding from previous conversations was a lot of the driving cost around number 8 is actually impacted by tariffs because of the materials that are going into those pillars. So it's a lot of work in ground to make a parking spot with 20, 30 spaces in it. So I think that it's location. That's the advantage of that one, of just where it is.
Just curious, where does, because I don't see it on the list, so maybe it doesn't fit here, but where would new stadium lights for the turf field fit into this conversation or not?
Question.
So that is a good question. So what we're talking about right now is the bid for Great Falls.
Okay.
There's the broader project where there's other things that we had to take off the table at the time that we went out for this bid because we were nervous, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of uncertainty. The lights were taken off before we went out. There's other things that we feel are also very important for this campus that didn't make this. Paving for me has come up a lot. The only paving will be just new things that are getting redone, not some of the crumbling parking lots that already exist. So that's been something else that we want a broader consideration. We're going to be planning another meeting with at least the Building Facilities Committee to go back through, okay, what are the things that we either had to take off before this project went out that we want to consider maybe rethink because of the costs. And I think the parking was one of them. But tonight, in order to start the school building project, we need to decide what we want in the contract for Great Falls and what on that alternate list is going to move forward.
Can you remind me of how many spaces the parking lot over the retention pond would give us?
I believe it's 32.
32, thank you. Can you remind me of how many spaces we are gaining without the retention pond?
Scott, if you can try to remember, or Tim, I think it's 160, somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay. 160-ish gained, even without the retention pond. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think the only thing to look at that number is that's across the campus. One of the big things about the retention pond was where it served, which is up here, which is where we have a lot of our activities with the auditorium. And so the high school situation, those 20 to 30 spots, regardless of where they come from, but those are actually, I think, when we thought about activities, parents, students, volunteers, actually come, like that 30 is almost a need to have, but currently, like, it's nice, right? Like, it's almost a need to have. I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had it. There are other options which we can discuss, but it was the location of it. Yeah, we can find 20 to 30 spots other parts of the campus, but it's really like where it serves.
Yeah.
Counterpoint.
Yep.
It's one campus, so, the more connected it is, the more parking in other places. I mean, I know parking right next to the new turf field would be great to show up to games, but also parking at Mabel I. Wilson's a 5-minute walk. I mean, I've parked there for graduation and other events, so I hear that that's the best possible location, but yeah, $800,000 is a tough pill to swallow when we need to repave other parts of the campus and stadium light, just in terms of bang for our buck. Yeah, I hear that those are the choicest place to put those parking spots, but also, refinishing other things and getting LED stadium lights to make the turf field, the best possible playing field. I mean, we've already invested so much to have crappy lights that don't shine. You're going to lose the ball in our old crappy lights and glares the community. Just thinking in terms of the entirety of the campus, I'd like to weigh what's the benefit for other things. I know the stadium lights, obviously, I'm in for the turf, but as a community benefit, right? Even if no one ever comes to our campus to park or come to any event, anybody who lives nearby, the glare from the current lights is off-putting, and the upgrade to new lights will be a community benefit to, migrating birds and the dark skies and everything else. So, I think we really need to weigh the entirety of the project and not just parking for seniors, basically.
Are we full on discussing parking spaces right now?
No.
Okay.
Our favorite time.
Well,
Because I was going to add, but if we're not.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there will be full-on parking discussions that it will be noticed and anybody can join. It will be a meeting where we'll have some more information about what their options are. And just a couple points about the lights too. So the lights that we have you're not able to see small balls at night.
Small ball. Yeah.
Small balls. So with the other lights, not only does it not contribute to the neighbors seeing the lights and the glare, because it's very controlled, but it also allows us to use small balls at night.
Could I add something on the lights, just timing-wise? Sure. So the timing of the lights and the decision on that, we'd have to make a decision prior to June 30th in order to have those lights on hand September 15th and to get them installed. So, so there's a quick timing on that decision that will need to be made. So,
That's good.
Can we do like a vote on it after?
why not?
We're scheduling the facilities meeting
so-
for
Oh,
next
right.
week.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
We got a
the,
lot-
it's just the
lights are big
timing of it,
out there.
and we're gonna do that project outside of the contractor. We aren't gonna
Yes.
do a change order with the
Yep.
contractor,
Yes.
so that we don't have a markup on the lights, and we end up basically overseeing that project ourselves.
Can I note that you can get lights from Musco through the Sourcewell Cooperative? You get a 5% discount.
We will try,
So noted.
just
Love
so
it.
noted.
It's trying to save us some money.
So just what the question on the table right now is if we add the add alternates and which ones. And so go ahead.
Can I make a motion
Yes.
to add all 7, the first 7, but remove add alternate 8 for the parking?
Second.
All in favor?
Oh,
Any
you discuss.
comments?
Hey, discuss.
Any
Um,
discussion?
I'm not ready.
Sorry, we're in the middle of another motion, so I don't know if we have to, I was like, okay. Can we introduce a new motion with the other motion on the table?
I think you're gonna have to, well, Robert's rules, I think you're gonna have to vote on the first motion and then go back and
Okay.
make a new motion at this
Well, I don't
point.
even know if we need a motion because,
Well, the first motion was just to award it to Great Falls,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
okay. But we didn't have an amount in there yet.
I think what we can do is just add that language to the motion
Okay.
that's already on the table. How about that?
Okay.
Because
Great.
that language is ambiguous enough that it can be added to the
Okay.
motion.
So now we are discussing the motion on the table, which is to move forward with alternates 1 through 7.
Yep.
Okay, go.
Okay, so I feel like I'm missing a piece, and that may be my fault. If we bring in the alternates, where does that get us in terms of the cost? I just don't understand what number we're working with right now.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff sent us an email that has the breakdown.
I don't have this email.
Is there another document that has that?
Yeah, it's in Jeff's email
It's
to
just
us.
an
He
email.
sent it to us 2 days ago, June 16th at 4:19 p.m. The bid tabulation sheet's within that document.
Thank you, Jesse.
I
Thank you.
don't know that I got
I'll forward it to everybody.
that. Awesome, thank you.
Was it like the regular board update
In the
email?
update,
Right.
yeah.
It was
update
like the,
660.
yeah.
Okay.
Update 616.
The
Oh,
1625.
Bumped, sent to you just now.
Thank you.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, got it.
And I had just requested that this other document be
Sorry,
added so
Betty.
we could see the prices of the alternates.
Is that worthy to share up on screens?
It would be
People
very-
I can try to get it up on the screen for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the base bid. I
For
feel
Great
like I need
Falls.
you to explain this to me like I'm 5.
Okay.
So,
So go to, there's Great
Yeah,
Falls. Yep.
To the base bid.
And they were the lowest with and without the alternates because we also
Okay.
had the conversation about does that change? But it doesn't.
And so with,
Yes.
okay.
So we would take that and subtract alternate number 8.
Mhm.
Okay. And so
compared
let me
to
just
the-
read this number so people know what we're talking about. Those following along at home. Sorry, Kim, can you just, I don't have it up. Can I just see yours?
Yeah, sorry.
$36,149,329 was the bid with all of the alternates. $36,149,329. The alternate number 8 was $819,977. And so the motion on the table is to subtract the $819,977 from the $36,149,329.
Which I believe would give you 35,329,352 without alternate 8.
Yes.
And what was the budget for this portion of the project? Or what was
40?
I
That's,
believe it was
40 million was the
40
target
million.
number.
40 million.
was the target?
Yeah,
number?
we're under by
That was the
quite a
target
bit.
number, including the bid, including the bid contingency, which
Okay.
is usually where you'd choose your alternates from.
Okay, so if I look at the budget, preliminary projection of project costs as of May 13th, 2024, is this the construction line?
It's like this. It's like some of this and some of that and
Okay.
some of this.
Okay, a little bit of this, a little
Yeah.
bit of that.
Right, because we split with some of
Right.
the
So we're,
other field, the work that we're doing right now.
yeah, so the,
Building,
obviously the
et cetera.
maintenance building comes out, the turf field comes out.
So yeah, we went in with 40 million to be able to add alternates up to, and with alternates 1 through 7 and the base bid, it's 35 million and change.
Yeah.
So still preserving
5 million. Give
Well-
or take.
a little less, but yes.
Thank you, everybody, I missed that piece. So my only, I mean, Jesse, I'm with you. What I was going to say about parking spaces before. Right now, when there's an event at the GCA, parking can be a pain, but we're adding several spaces at the new school.
that is true.
So I feel like, yeah, on a school day, it would be nice to have more spaces for seniors and they'd be less likely to run into each other when they're backing out of their spaces. But if we're thinking about 7 days a week and after hours, I don't feel that those spaces are necessary. And so I think, to me, weighing those two, I feel like we should not do the parking.
Great, thanks. And also just to note, we will be adding spots in this lot, but not like enough, but we're losing spots by the GCA. So
I think when we have our parking forum, which I can't wait for the parking summit, 2025 coming this summer. I think that there's no way that I could responsibly recommend that amount. And to be clear, the architects have recommended that we continue to doing that from a design standpoint and function. And one of their things is because, well, the new school, if we had a map, when we do our parking summit, you'll see the map. The new school doesn't have as much parking to it as you might think, like, oh, we have a new school. And so I think if we looked at all of our parking and considered more options out here, other spots, to maybe shift who normally parks in front of the GCA and kind of in relation or good, safe walking distance from the new school, I think then we can solve the need for what that space in front of the retention pond or on the retention pond would do. But I do think that there's still a need there, but we have other options that don't cost nearly $1 million.
$25,000 a spot.
Yeah. So just to know that I still think that it's a need for us to address, and we could talk about during the parking summit, but that is an insane number that we can make it pretty other ways.
We could buy everyone cars for that.
Yes. Yes.
Can I ask one other question? So the other big cost at alternate is the aluminum exterior doors, and I noticed there's like a wild swing between some. The low estimates were like 175,000 ish. High estimates were like 300,000 ish. So this one came in at like 244, so not low, not the highest. What are the doors made of if they're not aluminum?
Gold.
Yeah, I love this one too, and I think that I think Scott really can talk to this as well. My problem with this one, so this is another one we think is tariff impacted, right? And so my challenge with this is I don't know, like I feel like we're buying high, like during tariff time, and during our, like a previous discussion with the design team, they think that like, oh, prices don't go down. So who am I to argue with the experts? But I do know that like aluminum doors from a long-term investment standpoint, where we have rust and all that, we're always replacing, is a significant benefit and probably a cost savings in the long run. But that number, we were not happy with that number either. We're concerned with that number as well.
And what's interesting, if you do look at the tabulation comparisons, there's some that are very consistent across on the ad alternates, but the doors were also interesting. Some people were over 300,000, and some were, still much higher than our original estimate. So these were not the most expensive for that alternate.
No, and it's looking at the alternates as a package too, right? I mean, you have a contract and you look at it as a total package deal, so some of their alternates might be less, some of the alternates are higher, but that's the whole point of having them spell out the alternates and do that less. And we haven't continued with the window project at MIW. We're continuing with these doors. As Jeff and I were talking about the other day, we did a lot of the exterior doors in our SRF project, our revolving renovation fund with the state. But what we didn't get was the next step of doors inside. And so you have a security issue that needs to be addressed. Okay, so.
I would agree with the tariffing being a high driver cost here.
Yeah.
There's 25%. They talked about another 25% added recently. I deal with aluminum almost every day.
It's aluminum, yeah.
And I could see why there's a very big difference, because even just their supplier could drive that price. I mean, if they have domestic aluminum, they're going to be that much cheaper right now. I've seen price swings just absurd. So I know we had talked about stainless steel options as well in the building committee, and I don't know if any of that got priced out, just if we were to step back and look at it.
So Don Foster just texted me, okay? So I want you to know that, okay?
He's always watching.
Here is something none of us have considered, that aluminum doors in an elementary building are much lighter, and the metal doors are significantly heavy for little students, okay? So that's
Which was
piece, okay?
something that came up in the lunchroom at MIW, that there are those heavy
Big door,
doors
the big set of
that we
doors.
might need to revisit. Yeah.
So Don, if you're still watching, thank you.
And thank you for watching.
Yes.
So I just want to be really clear, because again, I don't know why I feel like this is just sort of hitting us. I mean, it has been less than a week since this all came through, but all 8 alternates, none of that is new things, right? These were all in our original plan and were removed because we were afraid of the costs and were able to bring them back in. So this is not like we're being asked to consider something brand new.
Correct.
No. And I should note, because of that, one of the other things that the design team talked about when they recommended that we go with number 8 was because the planning board had approved it, and any other parking that we might change or shift to kind of accommodate that, it brings that into question again. So just as, informing.
FYI.
Yes. The impervious surface and all the other things around the campus that would have to be looked at.
When's the parking?
Well, I do know. I mean, I wasn't at the planning board. I know parking in general was a concern, so they may want to make sure that we do have other additional parking. So just wanted to bring that note up.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, they gave us an exemption because we technically have too little spots.
Even with
So
this.
even with our current design
Yeah.
and how many spots we were adding for the size of the facility.
This isn't going to get us into trouble with that somehow by taking these out.
I mean,
Good question.
In trouble with the planning board, you mean?
I guess so. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, we just
feel
have
like
to
if
go
we had
back
an
and have our
exemption.
site plan reviewed again.
I feel like this was the cost of a spot if we were to put in a parking garage.
Yeah.
Yes.
right? I was like,
Yes.
why is that 25,000 sounding
Yes.
familiar?
Like a multi-story garage.
Yeah, it's almost like we're putting that underground in order to have
Yeah.
the abundance.
With radiant heating.
Wasn't most of the concern about parking, the ones right out here because of lights facing houses and taking down trees? It wasn't
That was
that
a lot of
people
that was
didn't.
the discussion. A lot of because we were like,
Yeah.
how much should we go back here so we can get more parking? Are people going to just see a big concrete stuff? Are we going to have this berm? Are we going to bother those people? Like a lot of the discussion was that. There's still been concern around that side too. So we just didn't talk
Okay.
as much about that as this one had just a lot more decision marks here. And I mean, Sean's here too. If you had anything, you're on the building committee. If you remember anything of that, but that was my recollection.
We've taken up green space too.
Mhm.
Not a lot of green space around here, so some of the community members enjoyed that.
Right.
And it was mostly around the parking circulation, how the driveway was managed.
Right.
People coming in and out, they're facing those condos over there.
Yep.
So it's headlights shining into the condos.
Right.
I think the design team was trying to mitigate that by changing the way driving.
Mhm.
I also don't.
So no one at home can hear. Do you want to just?
Oh.
No. Do you want to just summarize what Sean recap?
Yeah, Sean said, because I think there are two things. Sean said a lot of the discussion here has been, yes, concerned about the neighbors, but also like traffic flow through here, because obviously this space we all know is a problem area. And so a lot of it has been widening, where the spots go, how do we not bother neighbors? So there's just been a lot of like other variables. Up here, it seemed we had a lot more open space, and it wasn't as complicated of a system. I don't think it came to light until recently how significant the pillars and how the terrace would impact those pillars, and how much of a cost that would be to do that to the retention pond. That we had never really discussed that in detail up front over there. So I think that's been kind of a recent revelation. And when we saw 500 grand, we were like, whoa, that seems a lot. Hopefully it comes below that, because that's crazy. And then we saw 800,000, and then we were like, okay.
And it
So-
was consistent across all of the bidders.
Yeah.
And some were even higher.
Yeah, so I just don't think we had a good grasp of what that would take, because it's a whole drainage issue too, and yeah.
I think the only other thing we talked about parking over here was that we didn't want to violate the front steps of the Geiger building. That was kind of like the line
Yeah.
we had put in the sand. So I'm like, that's a good item to use for parking. Just that, preserve the green space. You have a consistent front across the entire campus. Just made sense.
Yep.
That's our brand.
Yeah.
Across the front.
Yep.
All right. Any other, so reminder, motion on the table is that we accept that we move to award Great Falls, the base bid with alternates 1 through 7.
For a total of.
For a total of,
I have $35,329,352. Does anyone have a different number? It's the number I backed out, alternate 8.
Thank you.
all in favor? Yay! Just another huge step in this process. Thank you. I mean, so much time, effort, energy, and love went into getting us here. And so, yeah. And when will work start? Tomorrow?
So it'll take at least, with the holiday tomorrow, it'll be probably a couple weeks before we can get the contract signed. We hope it's a little quicker than that, but we have to be reviewed and then signed. And then once that, we'll need to set up a meeting with the contractor. Obviously, we'll involve the facilities committee in that meeting to talk about a work schedule and when the actual breaking ground, second breaking ground, will begin. Scott, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just that we also have a pre-construction meeting coming up with the town next week. So,
Okay.
so we'll be doing a pre-construction meeting. That'll be on the 26th with codes and planning and everything.
Okay. So that the parking thing will obviously come up then.
We'll talk about that there as
Okay.
well when we're in that meeting, and we'll notify the architect so that we can get a contract done fairly quick,
Okay.
and then get Drummond Woodson to review that.
And it was great. Our clerk of the works was here last week and
Yep.
joined the groundbreaking.
Breaking.
And his wife, him and his wife.
Absolutely.
It's lovely.
He was.
He was, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was there.
And he's
Yeah.
moving, has he moved in yet?
He moves July 1st. He'll be moving basically on site,
That's incredible.
24 hours a day.
Here, we're very lucky to have him, so.
So just to get ahead of the conversation that, of course, is going to happen if we're coming in this much under the $53 million bid, what are the implications for that? What other decisions will we be making? Like, what is our process now with this new number?
I think it starts with the committee, the facilities committee, which we're scheduling a meeting. I don't think it's been scheduled yet, but for hopefully next week. And if not, the week after. It has to be done by the end of June so we can get some of these items discussed. So the process is for this facilities committee to review any of the outstanding things that never made it into the alternates or the base bid that had been part of all the discussions that the building committee had prior to it going out to bid. So that will be the next step. And then the facilities committee, the board's facilities committee, will then recommend what they feel needs to happen to the board.
And is there the possibility that these things that the facilities committee recommends will still be under 53 million?
Oh, it has
Well,
to
they
be.
have to
Oh,
be.
yeah, they have to
No,
be.
no, no. They could be to the cent.
Yes.
No,
and
yeah,
we've
okay.
had, I mean, I know I've asked that question as well. And if we do not need to bond the full 53 million, when does the last, I know we're doing it in stages, when does the last bond get
Well,
decided?
we have two band financings. We've already entered into one.
Okay.
We have another one coming up, and then we'll do a permanent bonding right about substantial completion of the project. So to roll into permanent financing, which should be 2027, I believe.
So,
So we'll have to look at what we want to do as we're going forward, but it doesn't mean that all those things have to roll in. If we want to add things to that, we don't have to roll them into the contractor's bid. We can also think about doing those ourselves if we want.
but this would be things that were already part of the project, long-term facilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So for
we do not
instance-
need to bond the full amount, and we will be having discussions.
So the example I would give you is like the continued windows at Mabel I. Wilson School, which are security issues and are operational issues for the building, which were not included in the base bid to continue the rest of those, and that's something we should think about.
Yeah, I mean,
And
those
so
are,
a question that I asked you today, and I'll just ask it publicly, like, even though it's a one campus project, it's not like we could just say, oh, hey, we've got 5 million, we could finally do the pool. I mean,
no.
Oh, boy, that would be a mistake, wouldn't it?
It has to be related to the scope of the
it has to be
project.
related to the scope of the
And
project.
quite frankly,
right.
it needs to be, I mean, those things that have already been discussed through this entire process that were removed from alternates or removed from the base bid along the way, going back to those items that are on the list that the architects kept. In fact, we can share that list with the board if you'd like,
Yeah.
that have been discussed in the past.
And those,
So-
even if we did all those things that were on that list, they still wouldn't fill that gap. But we'll be obviously responsible to the taxpayer, but also make sure that we still have enough. Like, we're being responsible to make sure that like there's contingency there. We're not over exuberant. I think the number,
Right.
it just makes us feel a lot more comfortable and breathe through and making sure that we're going to provide what was promised and nothing more. What was
Yes.
promised to the
Yeah.
to the taxpayer and
Yeah,
voters. Yeah.
because we also, I mean, things could come up. I think the benefit of it mostly being spent on a new school, I don't think as many things come up. I know when you're doing major renovations,
Yeah.
things.
Things can come up in a renovation project pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Unexpected thing.
And the other part would be that, one of the things to think about from a financial standpoint would be the cost of doing those improvements to Mabel I. Wilson School with a 30-year bond make a lot more sense than trying to spike your budget in years to try and accomplish those things, which would have a much larger tax impact on the community than bonding it over 30 years. So that's the way I kind of look at it, is if we're going to have to do it anyway, let's look at how we're going to do it on a 30-year bond.
And I would be careful with the word improvement, because these are things that are
Yeah,
maintenance, right? Like,
Yeah, they're needed pieces for the facility, and a lot of it has to do with the building envelope.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was all very exciting. Now we're going to move on
I'm excited.
to, can I have a motion to approve the strategic planning process for 25-26 as presented at the June 5th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Annika. All right, so we had this presentation at the last meeting. I know that some of the questions, at least that I recall, were around the 4 areas, and whether agreeing to this plan also agreed to those being the 4 areas.
Right, so obviously the board has the ability to amend, that was a recommendation. Here it is, it's on, should be on the screen. So the board can amend those priority areas, those are recommended priority areas. Let me just grab them real quick so you have them again.
I just, as that is coming up, I guess one thing I would wonder is if there would be a way to frame it that, you know, it's not that we don't support those being the priority areas, but that we would also support through the process those changing if the process indicates that they should change.
Right. Sorry, there it is. These were the recommendations from leadership team.
And that, yeah, these would be part of the workshopping of the strategic plan, would be to take a look at these as well.
So saying it very clearly, part of the strategic plan process that we'd be approving is to go through the process of identifying the priority areas. We are not approving the priority areas.
Right, and I think you can make that distinction too tonight, that the board, the priority areas will be part of the development of the strategic plan. So this was something the leadership team offered as a recommendation, as a starting place. It doesn't mean that tonight you have to approve these 4 and that's it. You're done. This is part of the next year of development, as reviewing these and seeing, does this make sense, or do you want to put something else forward? So you're not committed to this tonight. I'm sorry if I didn't make that more clear at the presentation. You're not committed to adopting these tonight.
Okay.
All we're asking the board to do tonight is commit to the process for the next year of developing a new strategic plan. That's it.
I think the process part is confusing me, because if we're like, when we look at this, the process has kind of already started, and like I think I would have the process I feel like should have started. I don't know if it like started with us kind of coming up with those priority areas, as I kind of understand it. And so like, since it's already started, I don't know if I'm already approving that and then we're going back. So like, I would approve that we do another round of strategic planning for 25-26, and love that you guys started something for us to work off of. But just the way that I strategic plan, and like going from like a top down approach, it feels like we've already kind of gone out of order. So I guess that's my somewhat confusion, because you're right, those pillars might not be what I pick. So like, that process has already started, so I don't know if I approve that process. So I approve going strategic planning next year, but not this process so far. And I think that's where I'm confused.
And that's fine. If the board can also start. Yeah, I think the board can also, you know, tonight you're just making it very clear, you're starting at the starting place. I realize that phase 1 planning, as recommended, we're almost in the middle of phase 1 planning, and now we're asking you to adopt a process, and that is true. And so it may feel a little bit the cart before the horse. It could be that you're saying, yeah, we're going to take 25-26 as the development year for the strategic planning, you know, going forward, and that could also mean looking at those priority areas, backing that out again. The curriculum committee did get those priority areas and put that forward, you know, just sent it to the board from there, but that's also the board's.
Okay, so this did go through curriculum.
It did,
Okay.
yeah.
We talked about it in a general basis, not as a specific basis. It was kind of a presentation was given, not a dissection. I didn't feel like it was.
No,
a
that's
Thank
right.
you.
That's how
But
I
I had kids coming
at
off
it.
the bus at the same time it was being presented, so,
And it was I think it was less than 10 minutes
yeah.
Okay.
left in the meeting to do
Okay,
that.
that's
So
helpful.
it was a general presentation, but not a dissection or a conversation of meaningful, picks.
Okay, the content.
Yeah.
Not immediate.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, you
That
gotta
was
start
helpful.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I appreciate having something to start from, and I also appreciate being asked to approve a plan before it starts.
Yeah,
We want to be part
I
of
can
phase
understand.
one.
It might be that, phase one is not really phase one. The gathering voices might be your phase one, or maybe there's
This is the
additional planning that you want for phase one. You're directing the work as the board. This is your strategic plan that you're offering the community, that you want the community to be involved in. So absolutely, if that's where you want to insert, instead of saying no to the priorities, even as a recommendation, that is your prerogative. That was just a recommendation from leadership team.
And I will say that this is definitely going to be part of our retreat, and I think we need to be realistic about what our expectation is of like board, like do we have a board committee for this? Is this just members of the board sitting on an administrative committee? And I think that will help inform the process as well from our perspective.
I will say, and I just for the benefit, I think I've said it at the last meeting, but to say it again, the one campus is obviously huge, and that's something we wanted to just relay, that the one campus will consume so much time and attention over really the next 3 to 4 years, not just the next 2 years as the school is being built, but there's so many programming things in the first year or two after the building, and all the transitions are occurring. We've already started that program work internally, in terms of curriculum and pieces that we need to do, all the staffing pieces. But there's, a lot more to do, and so we just wanted to, that was part of what we were trying to relay as well with the priorities, knowing that that part is huge for the community. But the rest, all of it is really up to the board to decide how you want to figure that out.
So is the vote really just to say, okay, we're going to start?
Really, your vote is just saying, we want to launch a new strategic plan, and next year is the development
Great.
phase of that plan, and you're not necessarily adopting this presentation.
Okay.
You're adopting the idea of developing a new strategic plan, and with the idea that it's going to take a year to develop that process for doing it. This process can be tweaked. The gathering voices is obviously a public recommendation that we're making, that there are voices gathered during this process. It doesn't mean that the board can't say, well, wait a minute, we're not sure we really want to do that kind of survey, or we want to do a different survey. Those are all details.
Okay.
And then I think we need to change the language in there, because I think it says as presented, which I think it's confusing. So I think there's a true amendment there where it needs a new motion.
Do you want to
So
make it?
That's
do you
our
wanna make
de
a new
facto
motion?
language.
Be as discussed, Tim, or?
As discussed.
As discussed. So moved. No. I move that we approve with moving forward with a strategic plan for the 2025-26 school year. Does that work?
A strategic plan.
Process.
Is it process though? Because that's
We're not moving
we're going
forward
to be
with the plan.
planning it. I don't know if it's a process of it. We're like we approve that will write a strategic plan.
Strategic plan planning.
Okay. That we will have
Intention
a-
to create a
Yeah,
strategic
I
plan.
move that we will have a
plan.
strategic planning process for
For-
2025-26.
Can I get it?
Say it again.
I move. I should write this down. I think Tom McGinnis would have written this down. I feel like I should follow him right now. I move that we commit as a board to move forward with a new strategic plan process for 2025-26.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah.
Can I ask a quick clarifying
Yes,
question?
yes, this is the time.
ChatGPT.
So Tim, are you saying we're throwing out what's been done so far?
No, I'm saying because we could use that in that process, but I don't. It sounds like what Jeff just said is that we don't have to do this thing as presented, well, like this presentation, and so I want to make it clear that we're not approving this plan that he presented last time in terms of that being the process. That we will start the process and maybe we'll use this, right? But we're just approving the fact that we are going to create and during the 25-26, we will do a new strategic plan.
Right, which I would, just to give a little history, this might help too. And I'm not suggesting this time around. The last two strategic planning cycles, there was a strategic planning committee. That was a stakeholder committee, fairly large groups of people that directed the development year of the strategic plan, and which ended up creating a strategic plan. That committee directed the work, made sure the process was done, and then the plan went to the board at the end of that development year.
Yeah,
So-
and that's, I think having a better understanding of the history and past process, I think will be an important thing for us as board members to do. And so I would say, let's come to our retreat with some more of that information so we can have a more informed discussion about what we think that looks like. And again, I just want us to be aware that depending on the direction, like we need to make sure, like if it's a board committee or community committee, like what that work looks like alongside with getting, the school project and everything else done. So just that to be a consideration about the roles.
Yeah, I think what I got hung up on, and you can't see it because it's got the, the pause and the page number on there, but it says that the last step of phase 1 is that the board votes on strategic planning process and priority areas, whereas the draft of the priority areas was May of 2025. Does that make sense? So I think maybe that's kind of where Tim and I are like, are we actually voting on the priority areas? And so I am comfortable with the wording of that, where we're basically using the bones of this without having to approve the priority areas.
Right, so what I'm hearing, and I wrote this down as a motion, is that the board wants to move forward with a strategic planning process. And I wrote, I don't know if I got this right, Tim, with the intent of creating a new strategic plan, right? And it couldn't be that you could leave it at that, and then at the retreat, you're discussing more details. It could be that you're using some of this from the presentation, or you're doing something different.
And I would love for everybody sitting here to think about their role in either leading that or, start to get those wheels turning.
And then I heard Tim motion, who's the second? I didn't hear this.
Sarah.
Okay, Sarah.
All in favor? Great, thank you, unanimous. Okay. Only 34 minutes to go. Okay, can I get a motion?
No pressure.
No pressure.
You gotta move.
Can I get a motion that the computation and declaration of votes for the district budget validation referendum, Article 1, and process, Article 2, dated June 10th, 2024, and attached here to be approved, that the computation and declaration of votes be entered upon the records of Maine School Administrative District Number 51, that a certified copy of the computation and declaration of votes be sent to each of the municipal clerks of the member municipalities within the Maine School Administrative District Number 51.
So moved.
Thank you, Megan.
Seconded.
Second.
Seconded with the amendment that the date is 2025.
What did? Oh, yeah.
The 2022.
Oh, it is.
I said I read the wrong date.
And
2025.
2025.
Jeez, okay.
Thank you.
Well, it does say dated June 10th, 2024.
Yes, and that's what I read.
I thought he said 2022. Okay.
So noted.
Okay.
The document says 25.
Yeah,
Okay.
the document itself.
Okay. Phew.
Just for those listening at home.
Okay. So, what does this all mean?
For me, this is just declaring that the referendum passed or failed, and if obviously the two questions passed. So it's just declaring that, and then the board will have to sign off on this declaring that it passed, and then I send a copy to each one of the clerks declaring that it's done and passed, and the board has noticed that. So so we have to have these signed before all the board members
I
leave
can't
this
believe that was just last Tuesday. That feels like a lifetime ago. I was like, how is this on today's agenda? Haven't we already done this? Wow.
It feels
Right?
like Groundhog Day for me.
I know.
It's just
Okay.
over and over, right?
Okay, any questions or comments before we vote? Okay. Oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
going to just say, I think my only comment is that, we have two towns. It had one town, like this was passed primarily because of, it lost in one town and won in the other. And so, like last year, with the school referendum vote, just to be aware of that as, members here, and to know that, like, we have some work to do to, especially in North Yarmouth, to continue engaging in transparency and building that trust and showing, like, when we talked about us redoing our process or really fixing our process to engage, particularly with our North Yarmouth folks, but Cumberland as well, on a process where they do approve of it, because I know they believe in the school. It's just something didn't sit right with them this time, and I think we have some work to do there. So just noting that.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
You want me to hold these until the end of the meeting?
I think
Pass
you
them
should start with Sean. All right.
Pass them up.
Thank you.
The same place on all three documents, okay?
Yes, you read it.
All right.
You're not on the right one, though. Move up.
You're right. Okay. I move that the warrant for assessment of tax and the assessment schedule and notice of installments for each member municipality prepared by the treasurer for fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 be approved and be issued in form presented to this meeting, and that the treasurer be authorized and directed to deliver to each member municipality its warrant for assessment of tax and its assessment schedule and notice of installments.
Thank you, Kim. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Annika. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? Great, thank you.
And there's 2 pages on this one where you have to sign the back of both, sign in the same place on each one of the documents. There's 2 to each page that you need to sign, a front and a back one, for both communities, okay? And this is basically just the tax assessment and the payment schedule.
Great, thanks. Do you want to do this one?
I will.
Or you're signing, do you want me to
No,
do
I
it?
can do it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I also move that the board authorize the following cost center transfers in the fiscal year 24-25 budget, provided that the total budget shall not be increased by these transfers. The Finance Committee recommends the following. Transfer up to $130,000 from regular instruction to student and staff support. Transfer up to $180,000 from regular instruction to system administration. Transfer up to $35,000 from special education to transportation and buses, and transfer $81,692 from special education to debt service.
Thanks for the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so,
Scott, do you want me to launch into this?
Please do.
Okay. So, first of all, for those of you who don't have your calculators out, that comes to $326,692. $326,692. That is the total that we are moving within the approved budget for February 24-25. So this is not more money. This is money from 2 cost centers into 4 other cost centers. Okay. And I'm trusting that Scott is going to catch me if I get this wrong. But you can see that we have $310,000 in regular instruction that we are moving into student and staff support and moving into system administration. That is primarily due to the fact that when we set the 24-25 budget, we were still in teacher negotiations. And so there was money that we just were not sure where it was gonna go as far as salary increases, things like that. And the way that ultimately the negotiations played out, the increase this year, instead of being one big increase, it's coming over several years. So as we all know, the 25-26 budget with the aggregate 8% raise for teachers, that's when it's really kicking in. But we did not know how that was going to play out when we set the budget for this current year. So we actually will be coming in probably more than 310,000 under, but for now, we do have money that will not be used from that cost center.
That 310, sorry, Kim, or 130? Okay, I'm getting lost in the numbers.
Okay,
Yes, where's
so
the-
there are two places
the
that we're
total,
moving money
okay.
to from regular instruction.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
130 to 180.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Student and staff support is that is a lot of technology, and we are. Oh my goodness, I am now okay. So we elected to, or maybe elected is not the correct word, but what we have chosen to do is to use funds from regular instruction to pay off a lease purchase within student and staff support. That is where our technology for the most part goes. And so in order to pay that off and prevent that payment from happening next year, which is why we set the budget the way that we did for student and staff support, we can take that money from regular instruction. Does that make sense, the way I just said that? The 180,000 to system administration, the reason why that cost center needs more money is primarily legal. Also, when we were setting this budget a little over a year ago, we were looking at having restructuring the district office in terms of the finance department. And things did not go quite the way we had planned. We have some overlap between Christine and her new position and I'm blanking on
Sue Fuller.
Thank you. Sue adding some hours to kind of help get things moving. There were a lot of extra hours that people had to work to get the accounting system going. So we ended up needing more in system administration for those reasons. So that's primarily legal and our finance office. So that is why we are looking to transfer this money from regular instruction. Special education is similar, even though we weren't under contract negotiations and collective bargaining for special ed. We did come in under just for unfilled positions. We had several staff that were out on unpaid leave. And so it was substitute teachers who were filling in, or it was a teacher who was not as high on the pay scale. Very common. So fortunately, we over budgeted a little bit, and the reason we're asking to move 35,000 into transportation and buses is that similar to the lease purchase for technology, we were able to structure our 25-26 budget without the bus payment. Scott, fill that in because I did not say that right.
It was, if you remember, there was a lot of discussion around purchasing other vans and van lease purchases that already existed. So what we did is in the budget process, in order not to have that payment in next year's budget that we were developing, we paid off the lease purchase on the vans in the year we're in because we knew we were going to have some fund balance. And so we strategically paid it off so that we didn't have to budget for it next year.
Right.
Okay.
So does that make sense? Those two lease purchases that we kept out, we were able to not have to put into the 25-26 budget do require these transfers from cost centers where we have those overages.
And reduced interest.
With and reduce the interest. And then for debt service, the way that the purchase of the Wyatt land was structured, we are it is an owner financed transaction, and the way that it played out, that line number for that cost center for debt service when it was budgeted for 24-25 did not include the payment to Bill Wyatt the way that we thought it was going to be. And once again, I don't know why I am messing up the way that I'm explaining this, but that is to cover the owner financed purchase of the Wyatt land, and so that will cover that there. Scott, take it from there.
No, it was just, I mean, the only other thing I would add, Kim, is that we had originally planned to take that from capital.
From capital,
And
thank
from
you. I
capital,
knew I
right.
was
It wasn't going to ever be part of the school bond.
Right.
But what we did with Mr. Wyatt as part of the negotiation was create a separate bond to him, so we can't pay that from capital. We have to pay it from principal and debt service, okay, and interest. So it appears there. And then had I been a little bit sharper at the time, I might have caught that, but I didn't. Okay, so.
And yeah. So again, that comes to a little over $326,000. That is less than last year. We want to remind you all that the state knows that when we are creating our budget, it is there's still 4 to 5 months left of the fiscal year, and staffing changes over the summer. There are so many things that are impossible to nail down to the number, and so you're allowed a 5% leeway. Based on our actual expenses, our encumbrances, meaning expenses that we know are coming, we haven't written the check yet, and then Scott sort of anticipating things that maybe we don't know exactly how much they are, but knowing that they're still coming, we are within 1.76%. So that is really impressive. And it's, Scott has historically gotten us there. I should say every board, every year that has approved, the community that has approved the budget, we have all collectively done a really good job of getting almost always under 2%. So 1.76 is fantastic. We are well within our, not only what is legal by the state of Maine, but also what is recommended. And so when we're moving these funds around, it really does represent a very minimal amount and at a very, very close approximation to what our actual costs were.
Well, and given that we didn't have the union contract
Exactly.
settled going into any of this budgeting being done, the fact that we're that close is...
Yeah, because of course, the association contract spreads over multiple cost centers, right? Not it's
Right.
improvement of instruction, it's, student and staff support and special ed and regular instruction. So it was impossible to know exactly where that was going to land with the changes that we made to the pay scale and structure of that scale. So I think we did quite well.
Yeah. Well, and there was recent legislation that passed that moved something from 5% to 8%.
Yeah.
Is
9%.
9%.
Oh, to 9%.
So
Is this what is being?
Yeah, so that's not what this is all about.
That's
They're
not what.
two
Okay.
separate things.
That's two
So,
separate things.
so the state authorizes that you can, because they understand the difficulties of just having to stay within individual cost centers without any type of leeway. They allow you a 5% transfer from any cost center to another cost center.
Okay.
To accommodate for those changes that come up throughout the course of the year. The other piece of this is that the funds that are left at the end of the year, which in our case is a little over 800,000 is what we're projecting.
Okay.
It could go one way or the other, but let's say it's $800,000. That money will go into what's called your unallocated fund balance at the end of the year. That's what can't exceed the 9%. Okay. So you
Okay. And that for us is
for us,
much
no,
smaller.
it used to be 5%. It's now gone to 9%.
Okay.
Well, we're going to be somewhere at the 3.2 million range in our unallocated fund balance. Well, our whole anticipation of that will never hit the 9% there, right? I mean, you'd have to be extraordinary to hit 9% on that, because we allocate money through the district budget process at the district budget meeting with the voters to allocate money to capital or to allocate it to our contingency funds.
That's helpful.
The bigger picture, okay, and I won't try not to take too much time, but we had a very lengthy conversation at finance today, is that those monies that are in our unallocated fund balance are going to go back to the taxpayers, because that's how we're offsetting the debt in our plan of financing. To stair tread, picture walking up 3 steps until you get to the year 2030, 31. We have a major, almost $800,000 in debt service dropping off in 2031. So our plan of financing will be utilizing fund balance to buy down that debt over a period of several years, like 3 years, till we get there. So we'll literally be softening the debt and lessening the impact to the taxpayers with the money that we've been able to plan and set aside over these years. So, and that's been an ongoing plan of financing that we've been doing for some time.
And just to confirm, Scott, then it's that full 886 100,000 number that is the unallocated fund balance. It's not that minus what we're
No,
talking
it's
about
not, no,
moving
because
between
you're
cost
off,
centers.
you've expended to get to that point.
Right.
So it's really the total 800 and something that will
Yeah.
add to fund balance. So,
Okay.
and that's what we're projecting now. Like I said, it could go a little higher, a little lower depending on where we end up. And so that's what will bring our fund balance to about a $3 million fund balance, which will be used, maybe say in the first year of the debt, we use 800,000, okay? Maybe in the second year of the debt, we use $1 million, okay? And over time, what that does is that softens that debt. So rather than going like this to the taxpayers straight up, it'll gradually go up over a period of years. Then it'll start to decline after 2031 because our debt service starts to drop. So that's been the plan of financing. And we talked at finance about, we'll have another presentation around that. I've talked about it before. There's a video online and a couple of graphs from when we were doing this previously. But we need to update those numbers. We're financing a little later than we thought we were. And but we'll present that at the finance committee and then to the board about what that plan of financing will look like, so that people can see what we're doing with those funds and what the actual tax impact will be of that debt.
And I wonder, the total number that we're talking about transferring, is it possible that that's just over 400,000 and not just over 300,000?
426.
426, I think.
426.9.
Okay.
I think what was maybe
Did I
missed in
say
that conversation
300?
was
I think
I sure did. Thank you.
might have been the debt on the back page.
Thank you very much.
So,
Great, thank you. And that was really helpful. Thanks for that.
yeah,
context.
just so we have an idea of that.
Yep.
And this is not uncommon. Municipalities do this. They transfer money to capital. They transfer money to other things, and thereby it basically provides that money back to the taxpayers, because you don't have to budget for those things in the next fiscal year. Okay.
Great. Any other questions? All in favor? Great. It's unanimous. Okay. Next up, we have the election of school board officers for the 25-26 school year. Christina was going to take this item, but she's caught in Augusta. She's talked with every board member, the outgoing board member, just about both interest for themselves or other people on the board around leadership, school board leadership for next year. And I believe Annika is going to present the motion.
Yeah. So I move to nominate and elect Leanne Kandura as the chair of the board of directors for the 2025-2026 school year.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions or comments? This feels all very, I know, right?
Do it again.
I don't know. I feel like I'm finally getting the hang of everything and become much more comfortable in this role. But I will say to anybody who's asked, and if you have, I've told you this, okay, 3 is enough. And that I have been so proud of the work that I've done with the past 2 boards, the work over the past year, being able to work with the administration. And there's so much to learn. And I've came in my first year really needing to understand a lot, and we had a lot going on, which was putting together the school project for the first time on campus. And then it's been so awesome this year to bring that into fruition through the groundbreaking. And I just feel that I have another year in me if I have people's support, just to continue. One of the challenges that we've all had was the turnover on the board, and the fact that Kim and I are now in our second term, which again, I can't believe that happened last week. So we have another 3 years that we've just been voted in for, and wanting to continue to build the board and the succession plans for each of the committees and chairs in ways that I feel will continue to serve our district well into the future. Because it takes years, as many of you who have been on the board for a few years, to really feel like you're getting a handle of the rhythm and the relationships, and the content, and the new content with the new school project that I would be happy to work with this group of individuals and proud to work with this group of individuals for another year in this role. But my only request was that who's ever interested in the vice chair, that the succession plan would be that they then be chair. So that was sort of what I put on the table for my interest to continue for another year. Any other comments?
Well, all right. So this is a discussion point. So I'm going to open that. And I wrote some things down and it'll probably become clear as I go through it. But it struck me the other day that I'm coming up on my third year, which is crazy. And so
it goes fast.
Yeah, I know. And hopefully it's not my last, but you never know. And so I feel like it might be a final opportunity for me to kind of shape what we do and how we govern. And so I just want to say it right up front. I think Kim and Leanne have led this board super respectfully. And I think it played a significant role in bridging us from a time of volatility and kind of chaos in the public to calming the waters. And I think that you have a different leadership style than I might have, but I think it was the right leadership style for the time. And so I commend you guys for the work that you do. But I kind of want to just share my vision, and I'm going to go as fast as I can, Sean, because I know your time is there, of how I think that just generally philosophically that we should be governed, and not between, this isn't like anyone, it's just like how the board should govern totally, like as a collective unit. So when I first ran for the seat, I ran because I believe that the board matters, and I believe in public education, and I believe that this is a commitment, what we do is a commitment to the community, and through that, we commit to transparency and to building the kind of trust that strengthens neighborhoods and futures. And I believe in local control is more than just a technicality, it's a public promise. And our job isn't just to steward a budget or review a policy, it's to represent the people who put us here, and even if that's uncomfortable, and especially if it's uncomfortable. So this year opened with parents raising real concerns, I think, about screen use in classrooms. And that was a conversation happening loudly in the community. I heard about it from a variety of people, but we never really engaged in it. And I know that that informed some of the subcommittee work, and I'm proud of that from the policy committee standpoint, but those conversations only involved a few of us. And I think things like that are missed opportunities. When we leave meaningful public conversations at the subcommittee level or fail to acknowledge them here, we risk sending the message that what's on people's minds isn't worthy of discussion. And so when people speak during public comment and we say nothing in return, what they hear is dismissal. And we can do better by responding with respect, by following up, or at the very least, by letting them know we've heard them. And the way we present our work, budgets, policies, priorities should be understandable and accessible. I don't think it's fair or realistic to expect our community to attend every subcommittee meeting or to understand these 300-page budgets where they're circling through things and it's not digestible for them and they don't know how to really engage with that. So I also feel like at times our meetings feel scripted, and it's designed around what the district, needs and the optics of all the celebrations we do, and there's a lot to celebrate. But it doesn't always feel responsive to what our families are concerned about. And so I kind of believe in a different structure, and I want our board discussions to help frame our subcommittee work. And then the subcommittees take it, they talk about it, and it circles back to us, and we close the loop through a vote so that we're all a part of our own work. So I'm not surprised when finance comes with a budget and we're struggling with something on the budget. And right now, most of our work happens at the subcommittees, but the public doesn't see that. So I want our school to feel like a community school, and not just the staff's, not just what is on Jeff's agenda or the leadership agendas, but what's on our agendas, because we came in here with promises that we are committed to. And so I think we all have a role in playing that. So I believe it's our job to question, not to just oppose for the sake of it, but to sharpen the work through scrutiny. We are not here to rubber stamp. We are not here to ensure the district delivers on its promises. We can look at we need to look at our constituents in the eye and say, we asked the questions you have asked us. We pushed for clarity that you deserve. But I think we sometimes avoid that role because of norms, because of habits. We don't want to surprise people. And I understand that, but I also worry that the phrase no surprises, which is something we learned day one on our orientation, can subtly teach us to silence ourselves. And we can't afford to do that. We can't risk staying quiet simply because speaking up might feel like a breach of etiquette, or we're worried about what others might think of us if we vote against the majority or the chair or the vice chair. That's not how trust is built, and frankly, it's not how governing works. So I want to acknowledge something up front. I know I'm one of the more critical voices on the board. I ask a lot of questions, and sometimes too many. Occasionally it turns into a full cross-examination, and now I know the policy members on this committee probably are bracing for impact because typically I overanalyze everything. I get it, I can be verbose. But it's a blessing and a curse to look at all sides. But as vocal as I am, I listen, I adjust, I'm quick to compromise, and I always ask others what they're thinking, especially when I know I might be off base. So I've often changed my minds in meetings. I've admitted when I've gotten things wrong, and I'm open to disagreement. And I hope anyone that I disagree with here feels that I've treated them the same, whether or not I've agreed with them or not. Because I believe in all of you, and this board is full of smart, committed people. Leadership to me means creating the conditions for everyone at the table to lead, and that means asking real questions and listening without ego, and sometimes stepping back to someone else's insight can come forward. But I think as a board, we've concentrated way too much responsibility in the role of the chair. Agenda control, subcommittee assignments, meeting structure. It's worked because we've had really good people in the chair, right? But there might be a time where we don't. And structures should outlast personalities. I don't think we need a president in the form of a chair. We need a facilitator, someone who trusts this group, brings out its collective wisdom, and doesn't treat information or influence in the form of leverage. I'm not saying that's what our current chair is, but I think that's the risk that we have in the structure. So I understand these conversations can be personal. So after I finish, I'm sure we're all sit in awkward silence, and that often leads to staying the course. But I imagine if we didn't, and imagine if we took this moment to spark for an honest conversation about how we want to govern, about what we want our time here every Thursday to look like. And then we choose the people, and not just the roles, but the people who we trust to get us there. So if this vision resonates with you, I'd be honored to vote for anyone that believes in it. And if not, I'd be happy to step forward in any leadership position. But I think something needs to change for us to build our relationship back with some of our community members and really do what we've promised over and over again, which is serve our community and be the bridge between the community and the administration. So, sorry, Sean, you can go, but that was my rant.
I will take a few minutes and listen to anybody else that has to talk, so.
I guess just what comes up for me hearing you talk, Tim, is I think that some of those conversations are certainly worth having. I do wonder the extent to which we can have them in this discussion period right now. And so I wonder, but, you know, and given some of our previous policy conversations and how we're trying to make sure that we do have those discussions that we need to have, I don't know if you or anyone else would have thoughts on how we could have those conversations if they're not able to happen in the context of this motion and this decision, in terms of the structural aspects, I guess, is what I'm thinking of.
I guess I'm confused as to why it wouldn't. I mean, I think what I'm putting on is, I think it's worthy of, and I'd be curious to see where Leanne feels on some of this stuff too. Like where it's worthy of. If this is my vision, I'd be curious where other people feel in terms of what their vision of how we should govern and how it fits. And if Leanne and Kim and their vision matches what you want and how you want to govern. So I think it's a really appropriate time, still appropriate to talk about it at this moment. So I think I'm just kind of confused as to the question.
Fair enough. It feels like a big conversation to me, and I guess that's where I'm coming from, that I personally, I don't know, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, you know, when could we productively have a conversation that feels like a really big conversation to have. And for me personally, I'm not sure that I feel like I can engage as well as I would like to in the context of this discussion period. But happy to hear what others might think as well.
I think you brought up a lot of good points. And I think when we talked about a strategic plan a little while ago and that process and what that means and how we interact with the community and as a board and the administration and the students that go here, I think that rolls into that dovetails it nicely. I think it's a process that maybe from my perspective is, yes, I'm here. I've been here almost a year. And I think from that perspective, it's a good opportunity to do it then. And I feel like you might have more perspective, and Kim has more perspective, and other members on this board, obviously, they've been here longer. They know what they've seen over the last 3 years. I have not. I've seen what I have a limited perspective, but I think those things tie in well together. And I think that's a good opportunity to talk about it, and obviously at the board retreat. But I think those are very important topics to discuss. And I agree with you, Annika, in the sense that I feel like I need to digest this more and think about it and kind of really look at it.
So I think that, yes, I agree. I think that there are some things in there that are really important. And I would argue that that is probably why it would be best to have Leanne be chair again. Because I think what can happen when you become the chair is you can't just jump in and make a bunch of changes, right? And that's why this is such, I'm so grateful that Leanne is running again, because I think it takes a while to sort of, if you use the ocean liner example of steering the ship, right? You can't go too quickly. You can't veer too quickly off the path. And so the relationships that Leanne has established, the time that she has spent now with 2 boards and seeing how things have played out in our elections and building those relationships with several community members, I could imagine that if we as a board are saying, okay, we want to make these adjustments or, tweak how we're doing things, that Leanne would be in the perfect position to be able to do that. and that because she knows, you know, how things work, rather than, and I don't mean like rather than you, but rather than somebody coming in as a new chair and saying, okay, you know, we're changing this. Does that?
Yeah, I
make any
think
sense?
the only thing of concern or the challenge, this is why I'd love to hear from Leanne on where she falls on some of this stuff too, is because the chair, again, has a disproportionate amount of power, where if we talked about it at the retreat and we had, you know, certain things about public comment, or we said certain things about this is how, you know, in terms of our meeting agenda structures, I think Leanne respects us enough to kind of follow that, but a chair generally wouldn't have to, right? Like, I think the chair has right now the power, based off policy and how we've interpreted that policy, to be able to kind of run the agendas, run the subcommittees, run the meetings that he or she chooses to do that. And so I think we should have these conversations at the retreat. I think it is a big conversation, but as it relates, this is a stepping stone towards making sure that we are open to those conversations so that we can, to hit some of these things. So I just want that to be said, that the chair has that power, and most of the power that I'm talking about in here are dictated as said by the chair.
If you're asking me to respond, it was a lot. You had a lot written
What?
down to respond to,
Uh-huh.
but I guess what I would actually ask of all my board members, I really believe in shared power. I am not interested in absolute at all. That was never my interest in becoming chair. It is why I often will make sure that things are discussed in committee. I believe that is the place for a lot of these conversations, because I don't want to feel like I'm having any undue influence in those conversations. Like, a lot of the things that you've mentioned are policy, and I've asked, I mean, Annika knows there's other board members who've brought these up. I was like, please, like, have these discussions in policy, give me a recommendation. If there's, you know, a consensus around how we can do this differently, that's what I want to know and hear. And so that's where I appreciate that process, because I am not interested, and anyone that knows me and works with me, like, I am not interested in any sort of absolute power. I feel like I'm putting in the work to support the board and be places where not everyone can be at all times. And when I'm asked if, like, how agenda items get on, I guess my first go-to is, okay, which committee does that fit in? Because I also am very aware that the reason the board has the committees is to do the work, right? And then bring it to the full board. And the reason we form committees in the way that we do is we put expertise on those committees. And I'm hoping every member of the board here can say that at least this past year, when the committees were put together, everyone got sort of what they asked for, and in the roles they asked for, and so that's how I hope I can be seen as a leader, is really shared responsibility. We have to have shared responsibility to get all the work done. And that most of the work in these discussions happen at the committee. And I know people don't have time. People don't even have time to come out and vote, right? And that takes 5 or 10 minutes, but, you know, and it's hard to digest. There's a lot that goes on. And so I would love any feedback. I'm always open to feedback. I always want to improve and ensure that I'm meeting the needs of fellow board members, our administrators, our students in the community. And I hope that board members feel like I've been approachable and have changed course when needed, taken in feedback, and not made decisions alone. And I hope that's how you've seen me as a leader.
I am very happy to throw my support behind you, Leanne. That is how I see you as a leader. You're extremely collaborative. I absolutely do not want to shortchange the fact that you, in particular, pushed me last year as the communications chair to bring people in. Our subcommittees have been successful because we have experts that come and join us, because we ask the community to come and play. Finance, Kim, you did the same thing, I think, by bringing in members of our community and soliciting feedback. You know, the job is to get the job done, and you do that. I appreciate your organization. I very much appreciate your communication. You're not letting things fall through the cracks. And this is a volunteer board, right? We don't all have all the time to do everything. Somehow you do. And I really, really appreciate it. So you have my support, and I do think that you lead with collaboration. So I'd be happy to have you be chair again.
Put my cards on the table. So when asked this question, I said if Leanne is running again, I would fully support her. I said if Leanne doesn't want it, then I think Tim would be great for the job, because Tim, I know you have expressed interest in being the chair. And, you know, I think with the One Campus project and all that's going on, I think having steady leadership and the strong leadership that Leanne has shown, I think makes sense. I think at our board retreat, having deeper conversations about tweaks that we could make. I agree with some of what you said, Tim, and a lot of it I actually don't agree with. I don't think we have enough time at these meetings for all of us to get into things or to respond to public comment. I've got all kinds of time to respond to emails. I've responded to every email any citizen has ever sent me. Sometimes they're very short. Sometimes I say thank you for your comment, because a lot of folks sometimes don't say the nicest things and don't ask questions. They're just, you know, blowing off steam. You know, so, you know, I think if folks cared about turf, they should have shown up to the turf subcommittees, and some people did, and some people I met with for coffee, and, you know, we answered some questions, you know, here when it was appropriate, but I don't think we have enough time in the day to answer every question all the time. And I think if people care enough, they can email or reach out to us, and I would hope that anyone else here on any other subcommittee answers folks' questions. There was a New York Times article on turf today. I got one email from a resident. I'll note I sent everybody that article at 6 a.m. this morning. One resident reached out to me about that article, and I wrote him many paragraphs getting into the details of the decision we made, because he didn't watch any of our school board meetings or come to any of our subcommittee meetings. But, you know, Leanne made sure that all of that's documented, right? Like, we asked all those questions when I brought up my presentations. People asked thoughtful questions. So yeah, I think Leanne has, you know, led with integrity. I think she's been collaborative. I think she's allowed, I think, the appropriate amount of comment and discussion in the right places. But Tim, I think you would also make a great board chair. So I hope you get reelected and we can pass the reins on to you in your second term.
So I just want to be clear. I was not necessarily throwing my hat into the ring. I would do it if the vision was there. But I also want to make sure that, like, yeah, I think Leanne has done a really nice job. But look at this discussion. This is not something that we, like, typically have at our board meetings. And I think it was really good, Leanne, to hear you articulate some of that stuff, because I experienced that a lot. And we also have certain disagreements, like Jesse and I do necessarily, about public comment. So it's really good to know that, like, we have a space at the retreat to kind of to discuss that. And so, like, it's to be clear that I think we shouldn't just always stay the course. We should talk about whether or not we should continue staying the course. And it's good to recheck in. And this is a really good opportunity for us to recheck in our governance structure and who governs us as well.
I mean, I'll be honest, my inclination is just to get things done. And I have to check myself constantly to make sure that everyone has a chance to participate or feel like their voice is part of the conversation, because this is how I can get things done, because that's like my natural inclination. But I feel like I've put in work, which has helped me in my day job, which I do have as well, just to make sure I'm not just pushing things forward.
And I think you do have to find that balance to get the work done and I appreciate just how responsive you have been when I've brought anything to you. And I will say that, earlier today I unearthed an email that Ann Maximovich had written last year at this time when we were going through this process with some thoughts that she had about how we might want to look at this board chair and vice chair nomination and election process. And we didn't do that work. I think there's no reason that we shouldn't do that work, but certainly trying to get an earlier start on it as we move into and then through the next year is what I'd like to see. So, can I move the question, or is there more discussion?
Thank you for saying that. It's not very awkward. All right, a vote? All in favor? Thank you. I appreciate the unanimous support to continue in this role. I take it very seriously, and I'm truly honored to get to work with all of you and with the district. And yeah, so thank you. Okay.
So I have one more motion to make. I'd like to move to nominate and elect Kim Vine as the vice chair of the board of directors for the 2025-2026 school year. Can I have a second?
Second.
See, Annika, you're ready. I've so enjoyed working with Kim in this role. I feel like we're good yin and yang, and I feel like we've divided and conquered a lot of the vast amount of responsibilities on the board, and the way that in which that she's chaired finance and then worked to support those conversations in her role as vice chair. It's just been really awesome to work with Kim over the past 2 years, and I really hope for an opportunity for the third, but as I said, I hope then she moves into the chair role, and I said I will miss a meeting, I promise, and you can at least practice. Comments? All right. All in favor? All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Oh, Tim, you're abstaining?
I'm abstaining, I think.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sean.
Yep.
I appreciate, we got you close.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. See you at the retreat. Okay, next is a move to authorize the superintendent to engage with legal counsel to join the mass action lawsuit. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Annika. Okay, so Power School. We have a document in our packet that I found very interesting. Did you know Power School is owned by Bain Capital, huh?
Mm-hmm. It is. Do you want me to speak to it? Okay. So
Please.
this motion is in front of you, and this has been discussed with Drummond and Whitson. Actually, Drummond and Whitson reviewed all the materials that you have, just to make sure that there was nothing that they needed to be concerned about. They did not have a concern. It's more of a, what does the board want to or not? So obviously we have Power School as our student information system in our district. There was a breach, if you remember, back in the winter, which affected Power School users and districts across the country and internationally. And we have put out information that Power School has given us, for example, to parents and guardians. There's been several messages that have gone out that Power School has provided. Our tech department has been very involved in working with Power School in order to help with this. I will say that I'm sure Power School or Bain Capital is overwhelmed with the breach and what's going on. So there has been what's called, instead of a class action lawsuit, it's a mass lawsuit that has been filed against Power School or Bain Capital, and very small amount of expectations for a single district. I'm just summarizing very quickly. Recoupment and reimbursement of any monies paid to Power School for contractual services if this mass lawsuit is successful. These are some of the things that would come out of it for individual districts. So being able to get reimbursed for any contractual services that Power School failed to provide it under its respective contracts. In this case, also attached, there's so much material attached to this, but in your reading, there is also our data privacy agreement. We have data privacy agreements with all the vendors that are used in our district, and we do have a data privacy agreement with Power School. So there are obviously areas in this in the Power School data privacy agreement that were breached, and that's really the basis of this mass lawsuit. Another benefit from joining this lawsuit is past and future monetary damages. So if there were any legal fees that were brought against the school district, or there's fees that we have to incur, or there's expenses that we weren't expecting, obviously we pay Power School an annual fee, but if there's other things in addition to that, if this lawsuit is successful, we will be able to recoup those damages. If we choose to not be with Power School and go ahead and cut a contract that we have with them, we have multiple year contracts with them, the district would be able in a position to do that if this lawsuit was won. Indemnity from Power School for any future litigation brought against the school district. So in other words, if a parent decided, or a family decided, or a staff member decided to sue MSAD 51 for something that happened because of Power School, this would indemnify. Of course, we have our own insurance, but in the case that there's a lawsuit that's brought, this would help cover those expenses as well, in addition to our own insurance. Fraudulent claims that are brought against the district would be covered under this lawsuit. And then there's an appointment of what they call a monitor to establish industry standard security systems. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, and I don't have a lot of detail about what Power School is or isn't doing, but what we do know is that obviously this breach was caused, we have enough information to know that it was caused because they did not follow industry standards with regarding security systems. And I can say that because that has been discovered as part of this process of looking at this breach. So that's why this lawsuit has come about. Drummond Woodson has said there's nothing that they have a concern with. It's certainly just a individual district decision or board decision whether they want to join it. In terms of obligation or expenses, there are no expenses that the district would have to bear up front. If the lawsuit, this mass lawsuit, was successful, the law firm that is covering this would get 30% of the monetary recovery. So they would only get any money if the mass lawsuit was successful and we were getting money. They would get 30% of any of that monetary recovery. And there's the only other thing that's obligated of the district would be about 5 to 8 hours of time to assist with the lawsuit. That simply means working with a law firm, probably be our IT staff, doing that in order to give the information that we have in our district's end. So again, it's a personal decision or decision of the board whether or not you feel like it's worth joining this lawsuit. We also, if you read the materials, can opt out if we don't like, or the board does not like the direction of where this might be going down the road. Again, this is probably a long process. I don't think it's going to be litigated anytime soon. But the board also has the opportunity to opt out if you change your mind and feel like what was presented by this law firm, which is the it's called France Law and Fagan Friedman and Frost LLP. They would be handling it. Obviously, it has nothing to do with Drummond Woodson. Drummond Woodson has simply just reviewed our materials or the materials of this law firm to see and make sure that there wasn't anything that was problematic for MSAD 51. So based on all this, my recommendation is that the board go ahead and join this mass lawsuit. I don't really think there's nothing to lose, and there could be something to gain. I'm kind of on the fence as to thinking, oh, we're going to get this big windfall or huge settlement or anything like that. I don't think that's the case, but I think there's some other protective factors, including if we keep Power School, the opportunity to have better security measures and make sure that those measures are in place. That would be taken care of by Power School. So I don't think there's really any downside. Drummond and Whitson didn't find that there was a downside to joining. There could be an upside, or there may not really be much of an upside. We just don't know. It's kind of ambiguous. So based on that, my recommendation is not going to hurt the district, and it could actually possibly benefit the district to join this mass lawsuit. So that's the information I have. It's all in the materials that were given to you. I'm just summarizing what was in there. If the board chooses to do that, and again, at any point, if the board is concerned, you can have another vote and get out of this as well.
Any questions?
Yeah, so the last 5-6 pages are the contract with this law firm, correct? France Law. And it talks about the 30%. And so any fees that are incurred, is that included in that 30%, or would we pay that above?
We pay nothing up front. We pay absolutely nothing.
Nothing up front.
Right.
But it does say that there are costs and expenses in addition to paying legal fees. So I just wanted to make sure we know
which would be any monetary damages recovered.
So
any of those pieces, they would get 30% of our recovery of those expenses.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We still have to pay Power School our annual. We have to, we have a contract with Power School. We're going to continue paying. Obviously, we use them as our SIS. We have to keep paying that annual fee to them, and we have something that's already in writing. We're going to continue with that at this time.
And has Power School offered anything to the individuals impacted, like credit monitoring?
That's it, credit monitoring. And any individuals that were impacted should have received an email. That we put that message out, I think, back in the winter when this first happened.
Okay.
And that came from Power School directly to us. And then whether or not they have followed through, we've been getting information that they are not following through on all that. Power School is the one that is responsible for contacting individuals that are affected, staff, families, students, parents, for any information. I think one of the criticisms, and again, I don't know all the details about this mass lawsuit beyond our district, but my understanding is that some of the things that they have said they're going to do, they have not actually done. And I think that may have been the origin of this mass lawsuit.
And if you join this lawsuit, you can't do something independently. Is that part of joining the lawsuit?
Right. If you join this one, you're not independently. And I asked Drummond Whitson, what is just for argument's sake, what's the value of even going out on our own? And there's no value. This is the only way to. This is a company that spans way beyond the United States in terms of its its impact. So you either join a mass lawsuit or you're not going to get anything. There's really no benefit from doing that.
Okay. And people don't know, unless you've actually received an individual email or not, people don't know who in our district was impacted.
No, we don't have that information. So that comes directly from Power School.
And so we wouldn't know if people have actually received it or not.
Right. I've had some parents reach out and say, I didn't hear anything. And does that mean I'm not impacted? And I've had to redirect them back to Power School. And there is a contact information that we put out back in the winter a couple times just to say, that's who you have to contact if you want to know. There were a couple of individuals connected to the district that where there were social security numbers, and this goes back decades from people that were connected, these were staff members, that we actually informed those people directly because we knew that information. But it was very limited. We don't collect social security numbers on students, so obviously no students were impacted in that way, or parents. But these were 2 staff members that worked there a long time.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay. All in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. Okay. Moving to policies. Can I have a motion to approve the deletion of policy JLCE, first aid and emergency medical care as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Tim, second?
Second.
Thank you, Annika. Do you want to just talk about our deletion again?
Yep. So this was a deletion that came to our attention by Drummond Woodsum, and this is, so the first aid and emergency medical care issues are accounted for in our nurses' procedures and are not needed in policy, and that is why we are recommending it for deletion.
Thanks. Any questions? All in favor? It's unanimous. Can I have a motion to approve policy JLIB, student dismissal precautions as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Annika. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Megan. I'll give it to Megan. Again, do you want to?
So this is a policy that was originally adopted and has not been updated since 2000. And so we wanted to revisit it. And the policy committee did revisit it. We made some relatively minor changes, but had some good discussion around how the dismissal policy varies from school to school due to differing ages and based on the timing of dismissal, and so explicitly added some of that language in there, and made sure that we were being cognizant of what it looks like at all of the different grade levels, and had some good input from folks as well.
Great.
And thanks to Tim for doing a lot of work on this to
I don't know if I want my name on that. That was,
absolutely.
that's a lot of pain in that one.
No, there was a lot of good discussion, and really appreciate the work that you did initially to, I think, bring up points that we needed to talk about. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Great. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the professional positions as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Megan. Can I get a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you, Kim. So we have 2 positions. We have a pre-K to 12 school nurse, and we have a literacy specialist interventionist, GMS 6-8. Do you want to just go
Yep.
through these?
We have school nurse, as Leanne mentioned, at Mabel I. Wilson School. We had 5 applicants for the position, and we had 3 interviews of 3 applicants. So the applicant coming forward is very experienced in the clinical world, not necessarily in the school world, but I will say that I'm trying to think of all of our nurses, but I believe all of them came to us with clinical experience in a hospital setting of some kind. So this is very typical for us to hire somebody in the medical world who comes to our schools and is wanting to be a school nurse. And that's the case with this particular applicant. So we're really happy to be able to secure someone who's got that clinical experience. With the literacy specialist and interventionist, we had 7. Again, these are both specialized positions as well. We had 7 people apply for the position. 4 people were asked for interviews, and the team ended up interviewing 2 people. 2 people must have decided that they were not going to come in for an interview. And then you have the applicant in front of you. This person, actually I just interviewed this person this week, who is out of state, has a lot of experience already as a literacy specialist and interventionist. So really very excited to be able to hire 2 people who have really great backgrounds and experience. I think the teams are really excited to be able to get both of these people for our district. I'm very happy to, and I do all the final interviews, so I get to spend time with these folks. So I'm very impressed.
Quick question, it just says for the nursing position needs 524. I presume that there's a plan in place for them to get that certification
Which one are you talking about?
for the
Kim?
nurse.
Oh, yes.
My understanding is she actually has it,
Yeah, she does. I believe she does have that.
her state.
You're talking about state certification or licensure.
That's what it is.
Yes.
I don't know what a 524
Yeah,
is.
she has, I
So-
believe she has.
It just
She has
says she
yeah,
needs
it's
it.
It's a certification.
She can't work in Maine. without
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
She can't hold
To work
that.
in the school, to transition from being, okay, great.
Yeah, as long as we know that that will.
Yeah, the RN, well, she
Yeah,
has
I
an
can't
RN license.
think of a reason not.
Right. She has her license.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think Fran mentioned to me that she had it, so.
Okay.
I just have a question about the literacy specialist at
Yep.
GMS. Now, is that replacing someone? Is that hiring an additional?
Nope, it's a replacement.
Great.
There's somebody in the position, resigned, and this is replacing that person. Same thing with the school nurse. It's a replacement for a position, a person who resigned.
And do we do exit interviews?
We always offer exit interviews for anyone that is leaving our district for whatever reason, retirement, resignation, whatever. Yes, there's always exit interviews offered. In fact, I just did one yesterday.
Great questions.
We put that in the information when we get a departure. There's information given by our HR specialist or HR coordinator. And in that information, it says if you would like to fill out a survey or an exit survey, you can do that. If you'd like an exit interview, you can choose that. So they can do one or the other, or both, I mean both, if they want to.
So if a contract was not being renewed, is that a resignation? Or if a probationary was not going to a full-time, is that considered a resignation?
So this, in both cases, these are resignations.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? Great, unanimous. And I do want to point out, in the superintendent's update this week, there was some nice information on staff retention over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And so thank you for including that. I think it's something we continue to be interested in understanding.
We can keep providing that information to you so that you have that. I think, yeah, I provided more detailed information regarding post-COVID and all that. But yeah, our retention number right now is 92%, which is very healthy, very high, and actually pre-COVID, back getting to those pre-COVID numbers that we had prior to the pandemic.
Great.
Jeff, can I ask a question
Sure.
on that? I don't know, like how you would share this, or like if it gets to a point, if we dissect it too much publicly, that you know who those people are or not, like just from a privacy standpoint. But I am kind of curious how that breaks down by position type or by grade level or subject or something like that, just to see if we're seeing more in certain areas and not in other. Like bus drivers are one thing
Yep.
too, or are.
We
I
can
know-
certainly get that information for you.
Okay.
And if it gets to the point where, it might be identifying people, we won't, we'll asterisk it and just say we can't
I don't care if it's
provide
like
that.
trend data with the big
Yeah,
number.
no,
like
we can do that by department, by school. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's not a
But
big
thank
thing.
you for sharing that.
Yes. No, I can do that.
Great. Okay. I know you've had this queued up for a bit now,
Oh, yes. Oh,
the
I'm sorry. Yes.
superintendent's report.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it was there, as I knew that people were, had some deadlines. So Portland Sea Dogs Education Day, third graders at the Portland Sea Dogs Education Day. What's that?
That's one of my boys.
Oh, yes. It got to say play ball, and that was our student on the left, and the other one got to throw out the first pitch. So really cool. Sea Dogs are always we have a nice relationship with them, and they're always sending messages to districts if you want to participate or come and get kids involved. So here are 2 kids that were very happy and smiling, and I think all of our kids were happy that day from that. Spelling Bee, 3rd grade Spelling Bee was held on the 9th, and thanks to Mrs. Coffey for hosting this first ever event for all of the young spellers. Mabel Wilson School, students have been working hard on keeping the noise in the lunchroom at an appropriate level. Last week they earned a very special lunch. I actually had a chance to visit that lunch and sit with a group of kids who were eating their lunch, and they were thrilled with it, I have to say. They were just...
Were they quiet?
Well, they were talking to me, so I'm not sure how quiet they were. But they just loved it, and they were showing me everything around the room and how exciting it was. But thanks to Ms. Nelson, Jen Nelson, who's our behavior coordinator for the Wilson School, for planning and organizing this. She does RTI behavior. And shout out to Ms. Carlson for helping to set up as well. And the kids were, again, very excited. One of them said it's like Disney World. So,
I don't think they've been.
What's that?
I don't think they've been. No offense. I'm sure.
No idea.
I'm sure it was great.
Yeah. But to Jen Nelson and Sarah Carlson, thank you for doing that. I think they're very excited to do that for the kids. Principal Muncie got pied in the face, which is a PTO event. PTO raised a lot of money, obviously, in getting the kids motivated to raise money, or not money, I'm sorry, food to fill the bus, which is now a May event annually. And I believe this might be the 3rd year in a row that the end result, if the students fill the bus with food, is to be able to throw pie in the face of the principal. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. So 1 student per grade level, K through 3 at the Wilson School. And you can see AP Mallory Orzechowski was more than happy to watch the principal get pied, our AP as well. Last day of school. We had all kinds of events on the last day of school. 3rd grade send-off, 8th grade send-off. There's a 4th and 5th grade staff like to line up and send all the kids off. Buses are all, it's really quite festive to watch. Buses are all beeping as they're going by. But just a really, there's a lot of fun traditional activities that occur. 8th grade, there's a 6 to 8 assembly where the 8th grade maroon and white nominees and award winners are announced. During that assembly, there's a 4th and 5th grade. It's really a 5th grade variety show where 5th graders put on a variety show for the 4th and 5th grade. So just all kinds of neat events on that last day of school. Very festive time, and it didn't rain, which is nice. Grade 6 catapult launch was part of, I believe, their science classes in 6th grade. Grade 7 was involved with thank you letters, just thanking all of their teachers. Food Fest, not Food Fight, Food Fest, Modern Language Food Fest. This is, they've done this probably 2 or 3 years now that I can think of over there. And Scott, after building that really nice huge awning that you had built over there, the students use it all the time. And I know this was an event where they definitely were using it that day. But just learning about food from other cultures and then eating the food from other cultures, which is always fun. The treble chorus at the Sea Dogs at Greeley High School, I believe the Madrigals were the ones that, no, not the Madrigals, the treble chorus were able to grace the Sea Dogs on the microphone. Groundbreaking ceremony, many thanks to, I think we had a little over 100 people show up, but we had the 3rd grade chorus, and we had the middle school jazz band that also performed, in addition to other festivities like photo ops and cake and ice cream and all that stuff. But it's just a nice festive event, great weather.
It's a nice photo of Megan and
I know.
That is a nice
Holy
photo.
moly.
Right. And so, yeah, Emily Gray was going around, and I'm hoping her album or pictures get shared because she had some beautiful pictures in there. And one of the things, and I said this to Megan, I was like, shoot, like we should have thought more about like getting the whole school board with the shovels. Like, it was like, right?
Stupid.
I know. I was like, we'll have to recreate it. I mean, we were all sitting up there, and then.
Like a wedding, like you have a list of want to get these photos.
I know. We should have gone through, like, I think the teachers, there's one with a bunch of the
A
teachers.
first grade team, a lot of them were there.
I love the fact that
Kindergarten.
yeah,
Actually, it was
there was
kindergarten at
one
first.
of their photos in there. It was so lovely. I was looking for one of your whole family, Tim. You should have all
Natalie's.
been.
I see Natalie. My 2-year-old couldn't wait and ran up at the very end and just started digging in.
Perfect. I mean, yeah, they need to get going.
Someone that's not
They
at
need,
the school.
they,
yes.
they're going to need a school there.
That's true.
We're building for her.
Yes, we are.
I'd like to just, there's 2 staff members. I'll start with Carol. Carol's been here 30 years, and we always, when you get up to the 30-year mark, we have a lot of staff who are in their 30-something years, but every year we recognize at staff celebration when you hit a 0. So once you hear 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, we've only had one that's hit 50 that I know of. When you hit a 0, we always have a big recognition in front of all the staff. So Carol Robinson was our only staff member this year that hit that 3-0 mark. So we just definitely want to shout out. Thank you to Carol. Carol is a special education resource teacher at the high school, and just a really kind person. She really works with the kids, relates really well with the students on our caseload, and is just there for them. Very nurturing. Oops, I didn't want to get to retirees yet. Also, Phil Blake. Wow, this might be a first. 50 years, and when we recognized him in front of all the staff, he wasn't there because he was driving a bus or he was under a bus at that moment and was not able to get.
Working on it. He wasn't thrown there.
Well, yes, not thrown under the. He was either driving or he was working on
It
it.
was intentional.
But anyway, Phil, unbelievable. We actually went down to Scott and I went down to the transportation garage earlier in the day because we knew Phil was going to be there because he was working on the buses or driving. So we went down and honored him in front of other drivers, and had a separate little celebration for him. But I did tell Phil that in 1975, when he started as working in this district in 1975, that Gerald Ford was president, and I had to give him some sort of recollection of what happened in 1975. So the only photo I could really find real quickly was Jerry Ford falling down Air Force One. The best thing that Phil liked was that the Bluebird bus was initiated in 1975. And Phil, we had a picture of the Bluebird bus back in 1975, showed it to him, he goes, "Oh my word, I remember that Bluebird bus."
I think he worked on that one, he said.
He said, "I worked on that bus back in 1975. So, wow, Phil Blake, there you go. 50 years. No one can remember. I mean, Scott, I know you're getting close, but no one can remember 50 years. Anybody being here 50 years. We also had a number of retirees. Lori Denham, actually a number, 3. Lori Denham, I was retiring from Mabel I. Wilson School. She works in the office as a part-time secretary in our office at Wilson School, and just really helps our office staff keep everything working smoothly at that school in a 750 student building. Sue Fuller. So Sue retired in December officially. However, with all the changeovers in the new software program that we have, Sue has intermittently showed up, come back to help out on any given day that we need her. So we've certainly said, "Sue, go have your retirement." But she's been so gracious in coming back when we've needed help, and few days. Do you want to say something about Sue?
Just that Sue's been overseeing the district finances with me for some time, and she's been amazing at her job, and it's a loss to the district that she's leaving that position, because she has definitely kept us off the rocks for a number of years in the financial area. So she's going to be very much missed. We did hang on to her for a while to get through the accounting software and some of the payroll issues we have, but yeah, definitely a loss to the district.
Yeah, I think her grandkids are calling from Texas. Yeah. So she has several down there. Amy Jacobson, longtime FLS teacher at the high school. Actually, I was talking to Amy the other day about how many students she thinks she's worked with. And it was interesting because she says, well, I've only worked with maybe 30 students, directly over the years. Because Amy, for a long time, was the FLS teacher at the middle school and the high school. So she toggled both buildings for many years. And I believe Amy's been here she's retiring after 32 years on the job. So, oops, I forgot there's 4. Sherry McInnes. Sherry has been in education for a long time. She taught out of Maine, but we were fortunate enough to hire her 8 or 9 years ago to be at 4-5. I know she's a beloved teacher, and she also was our staff member of the year in 2024. Just well respected and teacher in our district, and recognized by her colleagues as such as well.
I hear she's going to come back and do a variety of things, correct? Like, I hear like she's...
Well,
my
she
son
told me
is in her class
she told
and
me
is
she might be a sub.
very sad about this, and so I think she
Yeah.
gave him some... I'll be back for certain things.
No, I really do think she is.
Reassurances.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in fact, this is a really cool thing about this district. I think back, there's a lot of teachers who have retired and come back and are long-term substitutes or daily substitutes or volunteering. And they do that for a or bus drivers. We have somebody who retired, who was a teacher, then became an ed tech, and now works in our dish room at Mabel Wilson School, has had different jobs.
Drives the van between the schools.
We have one that drives the van, was a teacher. We have lots of staff that come back, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love seeing people come back, and I think Sherry will come back. She did say that to me too. She wants to come back and do something. So
She'll need to get her bus driver license.
she will. I could see her doing that. Yeah. But anyway, those are retirees this year. So we had 4 people retire. So sorry that they're going. Always miss our folks that have been here for a long time or whatnot. So that's the superintendent's report.
Great. Okay, now we're going to move into our last committee reports, and for this school board year, and we'll have a new member joining us for next time. And I'm just also reflecting on the fact, I mean, obviously people will have a chance to move committees if they want going forward, but over my 3 years here, we've never had this consistency of a board to be able to even think about somebody being on a committee for more than 1 year, let alone chairing it. And the fact that we have this opportunity, I'm really excited because there's been so much transition. So committee reports, students gone, which they should be. Nobody wants to come back to a school board meeting after school ends, but they will be joining our new student, and Katie should be joining our retreat, so look forward to seeing them there. Finance, you had a meeting today, huh?
Yes, we did, which I believe I've covered everything. I did want to mention that I did forget under one of the reasons why special education instruction has come in lower than budgeted for the year is we had an unused out-of-district placement. So I just wanted to add that in. And I also want to acknowledge that the finance chair forgot to carry the 1 when I was giving you the total. So thank you, Annika, for catching that, and just all of you for putting up with me while I kind of processed the information that we got today. It was a lot, but it was a great meeting, and we are definitely looking forward to utilizing the new accounting system to really be able to dig into numbers in the future.
Great. Thank you. Policy.
Yeah.
Annika.
So I think I'd like to start by just acknowledging the work of the policy committee this year, including Tim and Jesse and Jeff, who are all up here and regularly attend those meetings, as well as Melissa Porter, who supports our work. Carl Francis also was on the committee this year, as was Sophia Duina, who we have also talked about and recognized in her capacity as our student representative. But Melissa read my mind today and sent me a list of all of the policies that the committee and then the board have developed or revised or deleted over this past school year. And we have developed or revised 20 policies, if you count the 3 that we had to do twice. Deleted 5. And then we have a couple more on for first read, and those numbers do actually include the ones that we had on for second read tonight. So thanks for helping us add those to our numbers. Not that it's a numbers game, but I think I'm really proud of the work that the committee has done to both balance like having the conversation and discussion that we need to have, and also moving work through that needs to get done as well. So I've really appreciated that. We have a couple other policies on for first read tonight, and other work, of course, that will carry over. So I will, I think, kind of have 2 more bullet points for the update, but starting with those 2 policies that are on for first read. These really came to us through the discussion of generative artificial intelligence. And when you look at these 2 policies, let me just see in our notes. So starting with GCSA-R, Employee Technology Devices and Internet Use Rules, and then the student version really of that policy, IJNDBR, Student Use of District-Owned Technology and Device Rules. If you look at either of those, the bottom paragraph speaks to generative artificial intelligence, and this was an addition that was, these additions to each of these policies were made by the committee that Mari Treblecock convened, and, together with folks from technology and other stakeholder representatives. So this language should look fairly familiar because it is, I think, included maybe in slightly different words in the preamble to the administrative guidelines, and really just points to those administrative guidelines. But certainly wanted to acknowledge as a district both the opportunities as well as the challenges created by generative AI. As we were going through the process, we did make some other updates, had some other discussion. So you will see as you scroll through just some fairly minor language changes. I guess one thing that I would point out on the employee document under B4, so it's the top of page 2. We, as you might remember, recently had discussion around social media and acknowledging that, staff members, because we are a small community, may know students outside of their relationship with students as students because families know each other, that kind of thing. And so we wanted to update this language to reflect that so that any communications with students, and I would actually suggest we do have or minors crossed out there, and I would suggest maybe we keep or minors in. I think maybe we just missed that as a committee, but any communications with students or minors for non-school related purposes were prohibited under this policy. We're just now saying which violates policy GCSA and or other board policies, procedures, or school rules, to be consistent with that other change that we made in our social media policy. And you'll notice directly under that, we also have a addition of without prior approval of the superintendent or designee for any use of private financial, commercial, advertising, or solicitation purposes, that employee use of school devices would be prohibited to be used for those purposes. We had some discussion around, there are just some very minor potential exceptions to that, and so giving that that approval to the superintendent or designee felt appropriate. We do like to have that flexibility while also, again, that balance in our policies. And in the student version, just quickly look and see if there's anything to bring attention to there, aside from the generative artificial intelligence piece that we spoke about. Again, I think relatively minor changes. One thing that came up as well is, what page is that? 3 or 4? On page 3, F2, we were previously required to have informational meetings before a technology device was issued to a student, and that was flagged as just not being realistic at the high school level. And so, but acknowledging that a student and parent would sign a school's acknowledgement form in kind of whatever form that takes at the different schools. So we were able to make that change as well. And I think that is about it. But if there are any questions on those two policies, and these would come back for second read to a future meeting, so certainly if people have questions, we can address them in the meantime or at that meeting as well.
If anyone's wondering, we did use ChatGPT to determine our AI policies.
As one should.
Yeah.
No. Let it tell you how you should use it. Thank you for the incredible amount of policies that you guys were able to work through this year. I know that's quite a lift, and again, we potentially could have continuity with that committee, that you don't have to feel like you're starting from scratch again. So that's really exciting.
Well, and so the final thing that I will, that I wanted to talk about tonight is, and we've mentioned it here in the updates before, is that the committee has been interested in working on our policy BEDH, looking at that. That's our public participation in meetings policy. And so I think what we are looking at is that those board members who are currently on the committee, Tim, Jesse, myself, will take a look at that. Certainly if other board members have feedback on our public participation policy that you'd like to share with any of us, we would invite you to do so, and then we would look at maybe having a time to meet, at least the 3 of us, in a public meeting as a committee, where we could maybe take that feedback in and create something that we then bring to the board at the retreat. So that is one idea that we had hoped we might be able to bring forward.
I do want to throw one quick thing out in something that for us to kind of discuss and think about as we think about what policies to take on next. I think a common thing we came across was how policies really should be somewhat differentiated by the grade level that we had. Like we were challenged quite often by just like, well, this isn't really appropriate. Like this policy should be there for K through 8 or lower grades, but not really appropriate for high school. So then we would generalize it, but then it didn't feel like we were worried about how that covered specifically through K through 8. So I think it's worth us just work-wise to review the policies in the sense of age appropriateness and just make sure that like it makes sense, it's suitable for each grade level, because I think since we are K through 12, it's making sure that the policies fit every single appropriately age group. And so it was just a common problem for us this year, and something I think we should keep our eye out on.
I have a quick question on the student use. I was curious if, when you were talking about the policy changes, if there was a discussion on how much students should be expected to use technology, given that we have heard from community members who are concerned that maybe their kids are being asked to use technology more than the family would feel comfortable with. So obviously, this is more about like what they do when it's in their hand, but was that discussed at all, or is that not really a policy issue?
I mean, we discussed it not in that particular context, I would say, but it did come up. And I think, Tim, you raised this point as we were talking about actually the issue of having some parental acknowledgement of a device being issued to a child, and wanting to, again, I think depending on the grade level of the student, have understanding that, parents are informed when their students have a device, particularly if that device might be coming home, and that different parents are going to have different rules around how kids may or may not be allowed to access that at home. Okay. It's not explicitly addressed in this policy. I would guess that would, I don't know, Jeff, if you know where, if anywhere, we might have that in writing, and if it's addressed at all in handbooks in terms of, or I think, probably a lot of it is teachers and their work together, collaborating on, and, probably to some extent in curriculum as well, right, depending on what our resources are that we're using. But I don't think that we have.
We've definitely talked about it. There's been certain groups of staff that have talked more about it. And there's, like, for example, there's components of our literacy program that's being implemented at the elementary level, CKLA, that actually brings us back to some handwriting and cursive handwriting. That's becoming more of we're seeing the pendulum switch a little bit more, getting away from some of the devices for that work. So definitely that kind of discussion has been going on. Mm-hmm. So that's more of a curricular decision or discussion that staff are having. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of the interesting part. And that was one of the reasons that the literacy program, for example, was selected. That was one of many factors, was just this return to some things that we are probably missing, like that, which getting away from devices always to create writing. Sometimes it can be done on paper. It doesn't always have to be done on laptops. Mm-hmm. But I have to say there's nothing in writing anywhere that has addressed that. I think it's more, you're right, more organic discussions around curriculum and instructional delivery. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you know if they're also teaching kids how to type?
Well, we do have some typing lessons in the district, but it's not, we don't say like all third graders go through typing necessarily, but yeah, you're right. Typing is, that's another lost art.
Yeah.
As well.
All right, thank you. Any other policy questions? Building Facility Committee. Anything happen here recently?
Yeah, seriously. Well, we talked a lot about it today, so that's good. So I also want to acknowledge just everybody on that committee, a big committee, who took so much time. So staff members, family, expertise. Thank you, Sean, who's in the audience today. Just the amount of work that they put into it, and honestly, sometimes at like the expense of like family time and having to like explain things in their own community and be able to like manage up to the board members to kind of explain things that were in their realm of expertise. So I just so appreciate everyone's feedback, and I think there's a place for that committee or similar next year. We just need to kind of know what that looks like. So look forward to next steps on that. I also want to thank Leanne. Leanne really helped co-chair, especially at the beginning of the year, and kind of coached me through like how to handle a group of 24 people. So I appreciate Leanne on that. And then Megan, last week's groundbreaking was an incredible event. The details of it, when I came on, I was there an hour earlier. Everything was kind of like set already. And I was like this very useless guy standing around because everything had been taken care of. So I just want to applaud you for an incredible effort. That was awesome, and definitely worth celebrating. And so I think I think it was a big success, and I would love to see some of those pictures. And then, just generally, the facilities now I think needs to take a look at the landscape that we have from the latest budget projections, and just kind of feel. Look at, like, we've got some stuff that we've ignored recently, and we've got some because we've been prioritizing the building so much, the new project so much, that I think we just need to spend a little bit of the summer now knowing what the landscape looks like, and so many of the things that we needed to vote on have passed now. Now that we know what we are approved to go forward, we can really make a good plan, and so I look forward to doing that together and sharing that with you sometime during the summer. But I'd love to spend some of the retreat talking about that, because I think there are some big decisions coming forward that that I know Dawn has shared with me, but I know that we have to discuss, and I think it'd be great to discuss here. And that's it.
Thank you, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, appreciate everything that went into getting us to last week and the vote tonight. It's incredible. Curriculum, Christina, have you guys had a meeting since the last? All right. Thank you, Christina, for sharing curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be missed. All right, equity, Kim.
Same. We had our last meeting before our last board meeting, but I will echo other board chairs or committee chairs tonight and just thank profusely the equity committee that we had this year. It was an odd year, and everyone had a lot of patience and flexibility. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess everything's been so busy, I keep forgetting that this is like the last meeting of this board year. Anyway, ad hoc committee reports, any updates there? Okay, wonderful. Communications. So, board retreat. I don't know if everyone noticed this. We were originally doing a survey about the August date, and as I somewhat anticipated, there's a few people who are gone that week. And so then knowing that the July date was already on everyone's calendar, hopefully, except for the newest board members, wondering if we can just use that meeting for the retreat instead, in hopes that it does work for everyone potentially. And maybe just does the July 17th meeting that's already on your calendars work to use for our retreat? Mm-hmm. Amazing. Kim?
It works. No, it works for me. We talked a lot about a lot of things tonight.
Yeah.
That we're going to want to
Sure
cover
did.
during the retreat.
Uh-huh.
Will we have enough time?
Oh, yeah. Remember?
I feel like
get things done.
I feel like we need a weekend. Anyone who wants to offer their beach house to us for July 17th.
Yeah. So what we also acknowledge, or I acknowledge, that one meeting is never enough. I think one of the things that we've found previously is actually holding the retreat in August felt too late. And that we already felt like we were behind, right? And so what this does do is puts us on a little bit of a fast track of committees. I am hoping that people are thinking pretty hard about what roles they would like to serve this upcoming year. Again, I think the continuity part of the formation of the committees for last year was really to think about people's terms and creating more continuity. And so there will obviously be a new board member. We're having the board orientation with Lauren.
I think it's the 30th.
On the 30th.
And we've the student, our new student is also joining.
Awesome. So that will happen on June 30th. And then between then and the board meeting, what I would want is to have a conversation with each board member, and then have at least a week of sharing out materials, agendas, draft committees, so people could review board goals. So my ask of everyone here, in order for us to get ready, is to really think seriously about where you'd want to serve, where you'd like to provide leadership. We've talked about the strategic planning process and really think about, we will need board members who are pretty committed to that. And so in order for us to be ready for the 17th, for people to be able to put a little time in thinking about it, and then for us to find some time to sit and talk and me to put materials together. But I think we're just so well positioned because of the lack of turnover, which is lovely. Any other questions about the July 17th? Unfortunately, I think we're retreating here.
Yeah, they're ju-
I know. Maybe we can move some of it outside. We do think we might
We could go, I mean, well, the middle school and the Wilson School both have the outside.
have the outside.
If we reserve it or put a sign up, otherwise.
Okay.
Could be busy.
Yeah.
The
Because
o-
we don't
yeah.
film it. We don't.
It's not, it's not.
It's open.
yeah.
It's obviously
It's a public
noticed.
meeting.
It's
It's
a public
noticed.
meeting. It's noticed. We may or may not need an executive session.
Well, I was gonna say, Melissa did send out an email, and that she just wants, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look at her, see it, and get back to her, but, she's asking if people are available at 5:30
Okay.
for an executive session.
On the 17th. So if we could get back to Melissa on that. But yeah, I really think we'll be well prepared to hit the ground running. Because yeah, the work doesn't stop. I mean, the projects that we're going to see going on the 17th, this campus is going to look very different than it even does today. So we know it's going to be a very busy summer. And I really appreciate the shared responsibility that everyone on this board has to being ready to have those conversations that we want to have on the 17th.
Speaking of things happening, does anyone want to share what's going on in the superintendent lot right now? Looks a little different, a little harder to park.
Oh, yeah.
The what?
The superintendent lot.
Oh, there is a small modular that I had written in my update to the board last week, that Schiavi, our leasing company for all the modulars, moved it for free. They did not charge us to do that, which is great. This is a modular that was on the other side of the middle school, so it's not part of the regular. Most people didn't know we had it, and it was used primarily as an interventionist space by various specialists since we've had that modular. We've moved it over to the district office because we have a student that's in need of that modular space and staff that work with the student. So for the foreseeable future, that is why it is in our district parking lot right now. So we have extended services for many students in our district. So it will be helping to service in that area this summer. So yes, that is there. Can I also mention something, Leanne, about the August 4th, I think is the other date.
No.
You don't want me to?
No. I don't know your yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
so hopefully you've got that date too, August 4th. Melissa put that out as well. I think most people were able to attend, and that's, I know we're not going to get everybody in the summer.
Okay. Yeah.
MSMA, Main School Management, Eileen King is the Deputy Executive Director. Routinely, we've asked MSMA to come down and work with our board. I think the last time they did that was 2 years ago. So Eileen is coming down on the 4th to do some work with the board.
And that's not on our calendar yet.
That's not. Okay, I'll make sure that we put it. I think Melissa was still just making sure.
And
But
I
I
think
will put
that's
that.
something, if you're not able to attend, like if there's questions that you would like answered in that venue, I think that could be helpful.
Is that a daytime meeting?
No, it's an evening.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it's an evening meeting. Yep. We'll make sure that we get that out there.
And yeah, as we've mentioned, which I think is unusual for at least the times that I've been on the board, we do plan on having some committee meetings over the summer. We know there will be facilities continuing. Sounds like policy. We'll have at least one meeting to prep for the retreat. And I know summer is a busy time for everyone, and appreciate the fact that we can have some of that continuity. Great. All right. Anything else?
The only thing I'd say is, board members, please don't leave. We have documents to
Oh,
sign.
oh, there's.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I've done my job.
Everyone to my right can be mad at me. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse.
Please
Can I have a
don't
second?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Megan?
Megan,
Megan.
thank you. All in favor? Great. It's unanimous. Nobody wants to say.
Thank you for staying on.
Yes, thank you.
When you look at the